after he interrupted her phone call. She opted to punish the toddler by locking him in a room by himself for the rest of the night. Christopher, who was just 1.5 years old at the time, was traumatized to the point that when he was rescued, he refused to speak entirely. In fact, he regressed to the point of only communicating through screaming and crying for the next 6 years. To compensate for this newfound aphasia, his parents began taking him to attend speech therapy classes, which is where he was first diagnosed as being autistic, with the doctor predicting that he would likely never write his own name, let alone make it to high school. In a strange twist of events, Bob and Barbara would continue leaving Christopher with the delinquent babysitter for the next few years, likely so they could continue their tradition of late-night benders. This led his stepbrother, Cole, to attribute Chris's early muteness as largely being the fault of their neglect, a trend that would only worsen with time. Though the assertion that neglect was the source of his autism is baseless, the babysitter's supposed actions undeniably exacerbated Chris's condition, and in spite of its immediate consequences, they failed to take many basic preventative measures. In 1985, a new family moved into the Chandlers' neighborhood. With a child of their own, the families quickly became cordial with each other. This naturally led to Christopher becoming playmates with the couple's daughter, Sarah Hammer. Chris has a fond view of the years he spent with Sarah, reflecting upon them by proclaiming her to be a lifelong best friend. Unfortunately, the young girl would often pull mean-spirited pranks on the autistic child. An example of this was when she once convinced Chris that the cartoon character, Casper the Friendly Ghost, lived in the crawl space under her home. Once the young boy had crawled under the window to look for himself, she proceeded to lock him in, trapping Chris until her father came to the rescue. While one could argue that events such as these implicate her as a foe, Chris insists far more positive than negative experiences. He dismissed them as just childish pranks, overshadowed by his cherished memories of them playing. According to Chris himself, it was her that brought him out of his autistic social shell for the time. At home, Christopher's life was surrounded by music and pop culture. Unable to speak, he spent much of his time consuming children's entertainment such as Sesame Street, Air Bears, and Transformers. Bob even purchased a Commodore 64 home computer, sparking Chris's lifelong interest in technology and video games. His father was proud of Chris for being able to operate the personal computer before he could even speak, programming his own games on the console by age 6. Accompanying the Chandlers was their pet dog Patty, who Chris had picked out himself from his Aunt Karina's litter. At this point, his home life wasn't perfect, but it was comfortable. Unfortunately, things would only get worse when he began to attend school. The year was 1987, when he was dropped at the front door of Greene County Primary School. With Chris's struggles to communicate, this marked the beginning of many obstacles he'd have to overcome in his academic career. In spite of this, Bob was optimistic. In order to inspire his son, he penned a heartfelt letter detailing his expectations.
The reason for this open letter to you, which will grow as time goes on, is that I know now that I, at best, haven't much time left to share myself with you, particularly to share my things, my dreams, and my thoughts with you at a time in the future when you will be able to understand. Remember to use my things and carry on my dreams if you want to.
A distinct characteristic of the letter is that it's written informally. It's meant to be read as if he and Chris were speaking face to face, a through intimate discussion. Bob goes on to explain personal matters such as his previous marriages and what he sought to avoid when raising Chris.
I didn't plan my life. I just took it as it came along. I seem to have had no control over it. It always came along with what was right for me. Look at me 8 years ago in 1979, when I was really down and out and ready to cash in my chips with heart problems that I didn't even know about. Your mother, Barbara Ann, helped me through the rough spots and together we had. Now I really had something to live for. No better things or events could have happened to me. We've come a long way in the last 8 years. Together, we have built a whole new life with an exciting set of goals.
But by far the most important message Bob wanted Chris to take away was the importance of legacy. He recounts the story of how he carelessly broke his late grandfather's straight razor, an item that held great sentimental value to him, and how it caused him to realize the respect he ought to hold for their memories. From this, he hoped his son would cherish any future inherited belongings he might be given by his father, such as his prize stamp collection.
Do not be in such a hurry to use, play, or work with these things. First, learn all about them, how to use them and enjoy them, their value, and how you can thoughtlessly waste their value, then enjoy them as I have. As a boy, my greatest dream was to have inherited things from my mother, father, grandparents, etc. All of my books, stamp collections, and records. My dreams for you, your mother, and other personal things.
This idealized new life he wished to build with Chris and Barbara would culminate in the backyard of the Chandler's house. In 1989, Bob created a plaque and placed it on their backyard shed, proclaiming it as the dreaming studio of Mr. C and Little C. It's here that he'd attempt to teach Chris how to create things. Evidently, the dreaming studio didn't last long enough to make a true impact on Chris though, because in spite of the clear sentimental value Bob placed on his belongings, Chris would later sell his father's cherished stamp collection in 2017, using the profits to purchase toys. While on the subject of games, when examining the Chandler's Christmas of 1989, it can be discovered that Christopher received a Nintendo Game Boy from Santa, his second ever video game console. It was that same year that the young boy reportedly began speaking again, with the help of his speech therapist. By age 7, Chris had defied the professional's original expectations of him, an accomplishment that he'd wear with pride for the rest of his academic career. Soon after regaining his voice, for unknown reasons, Christopher was transferred from Greene County Primary School to Nathaniel Greene Elementary to attend the 4th grade. Although he was still riding off the success of regaining his speaking abilities, the administrators at this new school were not as impressed. While we'll never know for sure what happened there, legal documents indicate that the district had attempted to place him at a separate special education school, a decision that Bob and Barbara fought tooth and nail. It's speculated that they felt Chris's recent successes proved he didn't need the accommodations. Additionally, given their advanced age, they likely had a different perception of special ed than what was offered at the time. Regardless, the parents escalated the conflict. Chris recounts his experience at the school as one of frequent physical abuse, notoriously recalling an incident in which 5 facility members, including the school principal, pinned him down to the floor and recorded his cries on an audio cassette tape. Chris attributes this alleged assault to having been motivated by lust, going so far as to accuse the principal of being a pedo. He claims that the man had him sit on his lap before whispering quote-unquote offensive things to the young child. However, given the detail that the alleged assault was recorded, some have speculated it's much more likely that Chris had thrown a tantrum, and facility members recorded his cries as evidence that he couldn't function in a mainstream institution. Upon learning of the incident, Bob filed legal action against the administration, causing Chris to be homeschooled during the proceedings. The case was eventually dropped in 1994. At this point, with the young boy's mainstream enrollment still in jeopardy, Bob and Chris moved to Chesterfield County so they could legally attend a different school district. This forced Bob to retire, becoming a stay-at-home father. In order to continue working her job, Barbara remained at their home in Ruckersville, though she would come to visit them every weekend. The decision to keep Chris in public school is perhaps the single most significant turning point regarding his early development. The failure to provide accommodations for his special needs led to feelings of ostracization and appeared to hinder Chris's social development. Jumping forward to the Christmas season of 1992, Bob and Chris made a stop at the Regency Square Mall. At this shopping center was an animatronic creature named Leonard Bearstein, who conducted a symphony orchestra as part of a musical program. The animatronic was designed to be interactive, engaging with the audience in conversation through its human operator. The crowd was light that Thursday afternoon, causing Christopher to be able to have a largely one-on-one conversation with the robot between songs. Chris was spellbound, leading him and Bob to watch the performance for the next hour. In the midst of their conversation, Leonard Bearstein asked Christopher for his name. When Chris responded, the operator must have misheard him, as he began referring to the child as Christian. Following that interaction, the mistake stuck, with Chris going so far as to request his name be changed from Christopher to Christian. Oddly enough, Bob and Barbara agreed and had it legally changed the following year. With this brand new first name bestowed upon him by an animatronic bear, the now adolescent boy continued his education at Providence Middle School in the fall of 1993. He later described this campus as being much more pleasant than Nathaniel Green, and attributes his happiness there to a teacher named Mrs. Sanford, who is to date the only educator that Chris has singled out favorably. She helped the child develop social skills and instructed him on how to cope with the verbal bullying he endured. Upon his graduation from Providence, Mrs. Sanford wrote a personal letter addressed to Chris, in which she gave him heartfelt advice and bid her well wishes.
If you show people where your weak points are located, then they will know how to push your button. If you never show them, they will never know. Do your very best at
A letter addressed to Chris, in which she gave him heartfelt advice and bid her well wishes.
If you show people where your weak points are located, then they will know how to push your button. If you never show them, they will never know. Do your very best at Manchester. Put your best foot forward and treat others as you wish to be treated. Love, Mrs. Sanford.
16-bit arcade graphics.
Of all the pop culture movements in the 90s, one of the most prominent was the mascot with attitude, and the most notable example of this was Sega's Sonic the Hedgehog. In 1994, the Blur is most notable for his extreme speed. Made specifically to appeal to Western markets, the character was a massive success, quickly receiving his own syndicated Saturday morning cartoon in 1993. To promote the release of this new TV series, Sega hosted a contest known as the Sonic the Hedgehog Watch and Win Sweepstakes, in which they challenged viewers to write down what Sonic said at the end of each episode. Upon mailing in their transcriptions, they would then be entered into a drawing, where they'd have a chance to win a $1,000 shopping spree at KB Toys. As an early adopter of the Sonic craze, Christian entered the contest, and as luck would have it, when the winners were selected in February of 1994, he actually won.
Sorry, guys.
Exactly. Watch Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon and listen to what Sonic says at the end of it and write it down for a whole week. And then I had to mail it in, and it has to be drawn out of a hat, and I just won.
This victory marked the beginning of Christian's obsession with Sonic, who would go on to become his professed lifelong hero. And after the high of this spending spree, it wouldn't be the last time he entered a contest. By the spring of 1996, the family was once again together as Barbara retired from her job to live with her husband and son in Chesterfield County. This wouldn't last long, however, as according to Chris, some of their neighbors began spreading harmful rumors regarding the family.
I kind of don't want to beat this without...
Specified, the situation was apparently vitriolic enough to cause them to relocate to an apartment complex just outside of Richmond. But being immersed in his pop culture pastimes, Chris was largely unfazed by these developments. It was that September that Christian finally began his first year at Manchester High, a period he would retrospectively deem the happiest times of his life. At this school is where the creation of his very first Sonic the Hedgehog fan character, Bionic the Hedgehog, was conceived. Spending much of his freshman year as a water boy for the varsity basketball team, he came up with the character after being hit in the head with a basketball while he was daydreaming about Sega's gaming mascot. It is rather fittingly an orange recolor.
I don't really want to
Sonic
beat the game
that
without
likes to
Pin
play
Master here.
sports. This 9th grade year would also mark the beginning of his passive love quest, developing a major crush on a cheerleader he'd met during practice. After befriending the young lady, he quickly confessed that he had feelings for her, to which she politely turned him down. In contrast to his time at Providence, Chris's years at Manchester High were filled with far more conflict. In sophomore year, Christian was forcibly assigned to take the special education bus after a petty conflict with another student. According to Chris, he and another teen would race every day to see who could exit the vehicle first. This competition escalated, eventually culminating in the boy punching Chris in order to beat him out the door. However, like many of Chris's recollections from this period, what actually occurred is rather unclear. Across his various recountings of the bus incident, Chris has contradicted himself numerous times. He claimed that he both did and didn't fight back, and also went back and forth on whether or not his glasses had been broken. What has remained consistent, however, is his adamance that he was blameless. He bemoaned that in spite of instigating the fight, the other boy quote-unquote got off scot-free. Regardless of the truth, it was because of this conflict that he was removed from the mainstream busing system and forced to ride with who he rudely described as the slow in the minds. At this point, it's worth discussing Chris's particular distaste towards the developmentally disabled, one that illustrates the ableism instilled in him by his parents. It's clear at this age, Chris uncritically took the words of authority figures to heart. In what are typically the years of rebellion for most teens, Chris was remarkably obedient. This can be observed rather transparently in his first self-produced video titled Song of Christian. In this clip, Chris goes on multiple tangents about grievances he holds with his peers, such as their use of vulgar language.
Of course, you're not talking about those despicable, rude words they got there. I mean, they're boop and son of a boop. You understand what I'm talking about? I mean, that just really ticks me off. But you should never ever do. I mean, it's just rude, very rude. I'm just sick of it. I mean.
Do I even want to play Borderlands, man?
This would only be the start of Chris's self-produced recordings.
It's Alvin and the Chipmunks. Let's give him a big hand.
Yeah, it's time we do our trip, boys. You get it. We are doing okay.
Hello, my name is Barbara Chandler, and I'm calling to request a song for my husband for his birthday. No kidding.
Yo.
His name is Bob Chandler, and he's 71 years old today. No kidding. And the song I would like to request is A Bushel and a Peck.
Bushel and a peck, a hug around the neck for a 71-year-old man?
I think so.
As Christian entered his junior year, the maturity one would expect from a high school student didn't seem to be developing. In a mock radio broadcast Chris recorded for fun, his mother humors him as if he's a child, while he pretends to have guests such as Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Man.
At Manchester High, 11th grade has the most documentation. Recovered assignments illustrate how he performed at school, and the actual quality of his work against the grades he received. One of the first leaked
2 days on
projects
my
is dated
COMMANDO,
October 29th, 1998. Intended to be an icebreaker activity for his chemistry class, Chris notably refused to talk to any male students, leaving all their spaces blank. In spite of his woes of loneliness, things weren't entirely hopeless. It was in that class he would become lab partners with two female students, Kelly Andes and Sarah Bevel. They would be some of his first quote-unquote gal pals, a term Chris later coined to describe all of his female friends. Chris has reasoned that his autism test found that he got along better with women rather than men. Chris's gal pals would make up the entirety of his social life throughout high school, to varying degrees of sincerity. Perhaps the most earnest of these was Tiffany Gowan, who sat with Christian every day during lunch. It's worth noting that during this time, Chris was extremely naive on relationships and sex. He apparently was unaware of the idea of dating until he turned 21, a testament to his shelteredness. Evidently, the
Breaking Bald, I love that.
But where Chris's parents failed, entertainment took its place, a trend that would be recurrent throughout his life.
Yeah, let's go with the Beer
Chris
with No Name.
recalls, after unlocking
like
the
that.
parental controls on his television, he accidentally came across a suggestive scene in a film and had his first erection. Part of the known curriculum Chris took that year was a cooking class, evidenced by recovered kitchen safety worksheets he'd completed. In an assignment titled Safety First, he notes, "What could happen if you plug too many appliances into one outlet? It could start a fire." Christian also took child development classes, which included the activity of simulated parenthood. This is done through a variety of different methods, be it an interactive infant doll or in Chris's
Sell
case, an empathy belly, an attachable
tonight's
pregnancy stomach meant
Big
to
Loser.
enable students
There
to
we go.
understand the effects of carrying a child.
The belly made it uncomfortable for me to cross my legs, and when my legs were separated, it put pressure on my private part, which gave me a strange, weird feeling. So, it was quite an experience while I had a belly like a pregnant woman.
Despite bizarrely admitting to the teacher that the device gave him an erection, he still received a perfect 30 out of 30 grade.
Damn. Get fucked, everyone else that turned in a shitty work. You got out fucking done by Christian. How does that fucking feel?
In 1996, the first ever entries in the Pokemon franchise were released to the Game Boy in Japan and quickly evolved into a phenomenon. Within the first 2 years of its debut, the franchise received its own trading card game and anime series. And it wasn't long after this merchandising boom that the phenomenon began taking over the West. Due to the series' popularity, in 1998, the Pokemon TV show made its debut in the United States, with the games following soon after. It's unknown exactly when Chris discovered Pokemon, but when he did, he immersed himself with the universe almost as deeply as Sonic. At the same time as the Pokemon craze, Chris was taking Spanish classes in high school, where he often incorporated his love of video games into assignments. In a project dated February 8th, 1999, Chris illustrates his Spanish vocabulary by translating the names of characters from both Sonic the Hedgehog and Pokemon. This would be his earliest known reference to the franchise. It was this same month that Chris Chan would celebrate his 17th birthday. To commemorate, he produced a drawing of his character, Bionic the Hedgehog, holding a flag proclaiming, "I fought my autism, and I
Bionic
won."
the Hedgehog.
It was also
That's kinda
that
cool.
day that he would produce Espanolic. This character would later his 17th birthday, holding a flag to commemorate. It was this same month that Chris Chan would celebrate his 17th birthday. To commemorate, he produced a drawing of his character, Bionic the Hedgehog,
That's kinda
holding
cool.
a flag proclaiming, "I fought my autism, and I won." It was also that day that he would produce Espanolic. This character would later become one of the first entries in his line of original Pokemon cards, eventually amassing enough to create an entire Pokedex, which he dubbed
Wow.
the Wall of Originals. Of these homemade cards, standouts include Chikachu, a female Pikachu who can only deal damage when accompanied by a boyfriend, Flashbulb, a flashlight Pokemon, Compufrog, a frog made from computer code, and of course we can't forget Plotistic, a plant
Plotistic.
that's on the spectrum. As Chris continued
I
to express his
love that so
fascination with
much.
the Pokemon franchise, he soon created the first version of Quick's Pokesite. CWC
As,
are the initials of Christian's
fucked
full
up
name,
as Christian
which
is
he
the head, he
unusually
does-
proud of due to its ability
I
to
do,
be pronounced as Quick. This webpage would only last a few months before
I guess
being
admire his
replaced in July by
creative
Chris's second,
creative
more
ability.
amateurish Pokesite developed entirely in Notepad. Entering his final year of high school, Chris began this last hurrah by writing a short Pokemon fanfiction. Titled How the Pokemon Came Into Our Pokeballs, it was completed for an English assignment asking students to invent their own myth. Unlike his previous writings, his English teacher actually enjoyed this one. Sometime this same year, Chris also began volunteering at the local Books A Million as an assistant gym leader for their Pokemon trading card league. His staffing role was captured in a segment by Richmond NBC affiliate WWBT, showcasing him dressed up at the store as Ash Ketchum.
I'll put out my Dragonair, even though it has 60 damage on it. Oh boy. And now it has 3 energy on it. Slam attack.
With the end of the millennia, Christian was the same as he'd ever been. In fact, his obsession with the media was only worsening. He seemingly began showcasing
love
his Pokesite around school. With
Yu-Gi-Oh!
various
If you
teachers
guys
and
want to see some
friends
Yu-Gi-Oh!
signing
content,
his
please
guest
check out my
February of his senior year would be
out my
an
YouTube
especially
channel.
productive month for Christian Weston Chandler. That Valentine's Day, he published a poem to commemorate the event, titled Valentine's Day Hymn. While a cheerful celebration of another couple's love, this attitude would not last. Just a few days after this, Chris celebrated his 18th birthday. In attendance were Chris's parents, his stepbrother, and his gal pals from school. One of the only times Chris would interact with them outside of class. He would later reminisce on this being one of the best days of his life. With high school soon coming to a close, this seemed like a great memory to end this chapter of Chris's life on, but it would turn out he still had one more trick up his sleeve. In March, Christian was instructed to create an album cover as an assignment for his computer graphics class. One of the restrictions, however, was that students could not use any copyrighted materials. Given his obsession with pop culture, which bled into everything he produced, Chris struggled with the project's requirement of originality. This was when he had an epiphany. In order to circumvent the copyrights held by Sega and Nintendo, Christian invented Sonic Chew, a hybrid of the characters
I don't like
Pikachu
the
and
weapons, bro.
Sonic the Hedgehog. He recalls
I'd rather they
imagining
just
the
have this
character
sight
after
and then be
lunch
single
on that
burst,
fateful
or
day of March 17th.
what do you call it, semi-auto?
Sonic Chew on paper from imagination.
Not
Then I
semi-auto.
drew
What
on
is
my
it? I'm just gonna say
own
single shot.
Photoshop program. After checking with Miss
Is it semi-auto?
and my father, who is big on
Burst.
copyrights
Is
and
burst
whatnot,
semi-auto or single
Sonic
fire
Chew was
semi-auto?
legal then and still is, and only mine. So, soon after, the CD cover was made, printed, and passed with an A+ grade.
Upon this hybrid character's inception, things would never be the same. Now with his own quote-unquote original creation, Sonic Chew took the forefront of all of his
I'm gonna get my
endeavors.
skill.
The next month, he created
I'm gonna level up
a
to level
Sonic
5
Chew
probably, and then
sweatshirt and
play
gave
some
it to
DLC.
one of his gal pals as a birthday gift. He also began producing dozens of Sonic Chew variant Pokemon cards. 5 months after this, he even launched a Sonic Chew site to succeed his Pokesite. And it wasn't long after that he began drawing short comics featuring his mascot. In May, Chris attended his school's senior prom with his mother. Upon arriving, one of his gal pals saw this and felt sorry for him, so she asked him for a dance.
To be one with my crowd, I bought a pair of tickets, but I went there with my mother. But then I realized I was still an outcast because I showed up more like a lonesome wallflower. But that night, my trusted peppermint patty type gal pal, Tiffany Gowan, asked me to dance with her. I hesitated at first, but she grabbed my hand and pulled me onto the dance floor. We danced for what felt like hours.
Maybe I'm trying
In
to
April, the 18-year-old began a self-documentary
find meaning in my
project
life
for
through
class titled
astrology,
A
man.
Week with Christian Chandler.
I tried
It
to share some of
provides
my
valuable
interest in it with my
insight to
cousin the
everyday
other day,
life during those high school years,
and he's
as he
completely
admits to
fucking
falling
wrote me
asleep in
off, bro.
classes on a regular basis. It also notes that he attends several behavioral adjustment programs and proceeds to document several of his creations. Most notable is the City Room, which is an early version of what would later be known as Quickfill. It is a miniature city made from the pieces of Chris's various Lego kits and other memorabilia. It was here that he revealed that his family was moving back to their house in Rutgersville. According to Chris, his parents had failed to sell the home and would have stayed in Richmond had they succeeded. On June 15th, Christian graduated
I ended
from
up going pretty
Manchester
crazy
High
last
School.
night after I got
In spite
drunk.
of placing on the honor roll, for Chris, the celebration was not
I'm starting to think that maybe
ceremonious.
because
Before
I was
receiving their diplomas, an award ceremony was
Maybe I
held
was
to
angry.
recognize the school's gifted students. Chris became jealous after not being given an award for his art class assignments.
During the early award ceremony, I was a little thrilled to get a star for my grades. But then I find out that I'm outshined in my creative skills because those people do not appreciate the time and effort I took into making Sonic Chew. I was a high-functioning autistic boy who came way beyond out of his social shell, only to get zilch, nada, sip, a big fat zero.
When it came time to actually receive
this
his
is that
diploma,
actually
Chris
Christian
went up
narrating? That's
without
pretty cool.
making eye contact with anyone, going so far as to slap away the presenter's hand when they reached out for a congratulatory handshake. He then ran off and
Wait, what
found the
happened?
table isolated enough to cry alone. It wasn't simply jealousy that had
Wait,
various
what is he
Lego
upset
kits
for?
and other memorabilia. According to Chris, his parents had failed to sell the home and would have stayed in Richmond had they succeeded. On June 15th, Christian graduated from Manchester High School. In spite of placing on the honor roll, for Chris the celebration was not ceremonious. Before receiving their diplomas, an award ceremony was held to recognize the school's gifted students. Chris became jealous after not being given an award for his art class assignments.
During the early award ceremony, I was a little thrilled to get a star for my grades, but then I find out that I am outshined in my creative skills because those people do not appreciate the time and effort I
What?
took into making Sonichu.
So
I was a high-functioning autistic
he's
boy who came
he's
way
mad
beyond
that
out of his
he's being
social
awarded
shell, only to
for
get
his
zilch,
academic intelligence
nada,
rather than his
zip,
creative
a
intelligence
big fat zero.
or
When it came time to
the
actually
creative
receive
ability
his diploma, Chris went
compared
up
to his
without
academic
making
ability.
eye contact with anyone, going so far as to slap away the presenter's hand when they reached out for a congratulatory handshake. He then ran off and found a table isolated enough to cry alone. It wasn't simply jealousy that had overwhelmed him that day, but rather the realization he was leaving behind the quote, best circle of friends he ever had. As mentioned before, Chris seldom hung out with his gal pals outside of high school, and the end of his time at Manchester largely meant the end of his social life as he knew it. The high school graduation has since become a point of trauma for Chris, as he felt it marked the end of the best years of his life. The thing is, what he remembers from his high school years is an extremely romanticized version of events that didn't include the manipulation those around him participated in to help him make it through. He fondly recalls being an honor roll student, though teachers often gave him higher grades than he probably deserved. He liked to see himself as an engaged pupil, though slept through many of his classes. He had friendships,
Leveling
but
up
they always seemed to
increases
end
permanently
when the bell
increases the
rang.
amount of health you have.
Speaking of friends,
It also
let's
refills
take,
your
for example, one of
your
Chris's
shields
gal
and
pals
your
from middle
health and your
school, the
cooldown
girl next
ability.
door who would often hang
What do
out
we
with
call
him
it?
at the bus stop
Skill,
and near their
skill
home.
action, and your
Chris
skill action.
interpreted their time together as genuine camaraderie, when in fact she had
Nah,
been
I'm tired
paid
of
by
Jacob's
Bob
weapons,
to
honestly.
essentially babysit him. On top of this, there's been speculation that his father had a meeting with the principal of Manchester High, which resulted in school staff bringing together upstanding girls in Chris's grade to befriend and protect him from the horrors of high school. Meaning that the gal pals were also a result of behind-the-scenes meddling by his parents.
No
Perhaps
fucking
what makes this
way.
period of life so mesmerizing to Chris is by brings Bob to predict the girl and friends had liked to, so teachers often gave him higher grades than he probably deserved.
No way. So you're telling me everybody was just... That's not okay. You can't do that, dude. People like that need to know where they are in life. You can't continuously lie to them in life because one day they're going to realize that everything that they've been believing up till then has been what? They don't know what the world really is. They don't know right from wrong. They don't know. I don't know, but please don't do this. Please don't do this. I'm not saying anybody is, but
Jealousy that
or
had
anyone's planning
overwhelmed
to,
him
but
that day, but rather the realization he was leaving behind the quote, best circle of friends he ever had. As mentioned before, Chris seldom hung out with his gal pals outside of high school, and the end of his time at Manchester largely meant the end of his social life as he knew it. The high school graduation has since become a point of trauma for Chris, as he felt it marked the end of the best years of his life. The thing is, what he remembers from his high school years is an extremely romanticized version of events that didn't include the manipulation those around him participated in to help him make it through. He fondly recalls being an honor roll student, though teachers often gave him higher grades than he probably deserved. He liked to see himself as an engaged pupil, though slept through many of his classes. He had friendships, but they always seemed to end when the bell rang. Speaking of friends, let's take for example one of Chris's gal pals from middle school, the girl
okay,
next door.
hold on.
who
I'm
would
missing
often hang out
I
with
missed a
him
little
at
bit of
the bus
exposition
stop
as to what
near
he's
their
talking
home.
about.
Chris and
Okay,
those
so
around him participated in his version of his Chris, as he felt it marked the end of the best years of his life. The thing is, what he remembers from his high school years is an extremely romanticized
it's
version of events
romanticized.
that didn't include the manipulation those around him participated in to help him make it through. He fondly recalls being an honor roll student, though teachers often gave him higher grades than he probably deserved. He
Uh-oh,
liked to
my
see
game crashed?
himself as an
It
engaged
did.
pupil, though slept through many of his classes. He had friendships, but they always seemed to end when the bell rang. Speaking of
Whoa,
friends,
no way.
though teachers often gave him make it. That didn't include the manipulation those around him participated in to help him make it through. He fondly recalls being an honor roll student, though teachers often gave him higher grades than he probably deserved. He liked to see himself as an engaged pupil, though slept through many of his
Oh,
classes.
shit.
He had friendships, but they always
Hey,
seemed
69
to
viewers.
end when the bell rang.
Let's see.
Let's take, for example,
I don't.
one of
How do you
Chris's
say
gal
that?
pals,
T18 Iyer,
the girl next door who would
T18
often hang
Iyer,
out with him at the bus stop
T18
and near their home. Chris
Tone,
interpreted their time
8,
together as genuine camaraderie,
8
when in
dear.
fact she had been paid by Bob to essentially
Tone,
babysit him. On top of this,
Tone-
there's been speculation
Tone-
that his father
Tony.
had a meeting with the principal of Manchester
Tony
High,
R.
which
Thank you
resulted in
for
school staff
thank you
bringing
for
together
subscribing.
upstanding
Thank you for
girls
following.
in Chris's grade to
I'm gonna call
befriend
you
and
Tony
protect
R.
him
That's
from
what I'm
the horrors of
assuming
high
that you were
school.
trying to go for
Meaning
there.
that the gal pals were also a result of behind-the-scenes meddling by his parents. Perhaps what makes this period of life so mesmerizing to Chris is that it was a time
We're
of
playing
innocence,
Borderlands 2.
when he was
We just
still
started a
largely
Salvador
getting away
build.
with being oblivious to the world.
And we're listening to
An
Gaming
era
from
where his
Mars.
parents
Talk
could
about
still
Christian.
feasibly shelter him as he developed an over-reliance on children's entertainment to compensate.
I found
And
him
no
here.
matter how superficial the relationships were, they still were friendships to him. His gal pals were the one thing standing between Chris and solitude. After high school, as Chris had guessed, he'd lose contact with them, but most could have never guessed how far he would descend into isolation. The weather was dark and rainy that graduation day, as the now adult Chris sobbed by himself in his graduation gown. When Barbara and Tiffany found him, they comforted the emotional young man. His father, however, was less forgiving with how his son had behaved. Perhaps he read the writing on the wall then and there, and realized
what?
the futility of
It
his
brought me back to
family's
level
future.
1. Or was I even level 2? I don't think so. But it brought me back to before Knuckle Dragger. What the heck?
Now out of high school, Chris finally had the independence that's afforded to adults. With his free time, Chris began volunteering as an assistant Pokemon gym leader at the local Toys R Us trading card club in Charlottesville. According to first-hand accounts, he often attempted to use his homemade Pokemon cards in regular play, which were unbalanced and overpowered.
No shot.
Christian also launched SonicChew.com, though it was largely neglected. His family, now back under the same roof, began attending the newly established Grace Baptist Church. And in August, Chris began his first year at Piedmont, Virginia Community College. He was set to graduate with an associate's degree in 2 years. With all of his high school friends left behind, Chris found solace in his artwork, and that winter crafted his very first, now iconic, Sonic Chew medallion using Crayola model magic. Originally decorated with a makeshift chain, this was later replaced with a higher quality necklace he'd bought from the mall. The medallion was intended to serve as a name tag, something that would help him stand out in public. And that December, Chris designed a companion character for Sonic Chew named Rose Chew, a rather blatant derivative of the Sonic character Amy Rose. In August of 2001, Christian began working his first and to date only conventional job. At local Wendy's, but had a difficult time maintaining his employment, only lasting about a year and a half before being fired. Unlike high school,
I love
the
Hyperion
employees
SMGs,
at
dude.
the fast food chain were critical of him and made their frustrations known in a very patronizing manner. The exact circumstances of which he was fired are unclear, though there are 2 incidents often credited as being the last straw. The first claims that Chris was terminated for drawing a picture of an older female coworker as a Pokemon, which they found deeply offensive. The second excuse that Chris told himself involved his attempts to entertain a little boy with his parents, where he performed an impression of the character Donald Duck. This scared the child, causing him to cry. It's approximated that Chris earned around $500 from his employment at Wendy's. In June of 2002, he stopped volunteering as a Pokemon gym leader at the local Toys R Us, opting to play at the locally owned hobby shop known as the Game Place every
I recommend watching
As Chris
Joker
proceeded through college, he began
if
to
you,
appreciate
you're
all the
interested in
moments he'd taken for granted
deep
back in
diving
high
into
school.
Psyche.
In February of 2003, he wrote a fond account of his 18th
Level up,
birthday
okay.
party.
Amount of health and the amount of damage you deal. Immediately gives you full health and shields. Okay.
That year, on his
That's good.
21st special day, Chris was reading Peter Robinson's Wednesday's Child for an English class. What made this class memorable was that homosexuality had come up.
You know, this doll pistol's
something that
kind of
Chris
growing
thought
on me.
of as revolting at the time due to his religious beliefs. As a result, he made derogatory comments towards homosexuals and was promptly told to leave. What exactly was said has never been revealed, but Chris himself described them as, quote-unquote, exclamations you'd likely hear from a black person in church. Given the punishment, most surmise his assertions must have been rather severe. And after being told to leave, Chris once again sat by himself and cried. The only difference this time was that there was no one there to comfort him. Whether or not Chris outright quit the class by choice or was forced to leave is unclear. But this would set a bad precedent.
I'm gonna play the
rest of his
pre-sequel,
college career.
and
This incident would mark the beginning of a new saga in Chris's life. One that would lead him not to
damn,
just
I had a
be
dream where I
eventually
showed my
expelled from
cousins
his college entirely,
my
but to
PS4
infamy.
version
That day,
of
right
the
after
Handsome
he was
Collection,
ejected from
which is
English
weird. It
class,
feels like it wasn't a
began
dream.
his love quest. You
Cause I'm
see,
pretty
since
sure I
he
do
had no one
have
to console him for the first time in
the
his
Handsome
life,
Collection.
It led Chris to realize that he
just-
should pursue a romantic relationship.
I really feel like it wasn't a
to fill
dream,
the now
but I'm
empty hole
pretty
in his
sure.
emotional support
I'm
network.
50%,
But to discover
30%
his
sure it
soulmates
was
and
a dream.
perhaps even one day bear his child, he had to go back to the drawing board. Throughout April of 2003, Chris began depicting romance using his Sonic Chew characters. He created the Hedgehogs in Love Pokemon card before quickly succeeding it with the short story Sonic Chew and Rose Chew, the genesis of the Love Hogs. The story ends with Sonic Chew and Rose Chew gazing at the moon before locking eyes and sharing a passionate kiss. But it wasn't until August that his desperation for intimacy began to materialize in the real world. As Chris entered his fourth year at the two-year community college, he officially began his search for a sweetheart. Rather than ask them out directly though, that month, Chris made his first attraction sign to get the attention of a boyfriend-free girl. On it, the romantically challenged man describes not just himself, but also the qualities he wished for his significant other.
21 and single white male. Shy, smart, young at heart, computer skilled, humorous, a great thinker and go-getter, enjoys good parts of life, diplomatic, peaceful, very creative, he's lonely, seeking a cute 18 to 21 single female companion who is 18 to 21 years of age and does not already have a boyfriend. Average to slender, body type, white, lives in the Charlottesville or Ruckersville area, does not smoke or drink alcohol, happy, positive, personality, average or high income, drives a vehicle. If any man read this huge sign, mind your own business. And to all men with girlfriends, except married and blacks, go jump off a cliff, have a nice day.
For the next 2 months, Chris would tape the sign to the wall of the college's lobby, often waiting somewhere beside it. However, his plans would be thwarted when on October 7th, Mary Lee Walsh, the Dean of Student Services, approached him,
Coptrap, hurry the
confiscated his
fuck
sign,
up, my guy.
and bluntly told him
Why do you
to
take
stop.
so long to do
Chris
shit?
interpreted her authoritative command as very violent, claiming she had exclaimed, "You're not allowed to find true love here." Determined, Chris stubbornly created another attraction sign, only for Mary to confiscate it again a few weeks later. This temporarily led Chris to return to venting his frustrations into his art, at least for the next few months. In November, Chris wrote a poem titled "The Saddest Heart in the World."
And with the Backstreet Boys tune, I sing my lonesome croon. Tell me why I'm stuck as a virgin. Wait, tell me why.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
I ain't ever wanna hear you say.
Tell me why.
I
Hell yeah.
have a boyfriend.
These lyrics would later be used in the song "So Need a Cute Girl," a track from Christian's cover album Christian and the Hedgehog Boys, which he'd begun recording at the end of that summer. This song would later become a massive hit online, with dozens of covers existing across multiple platforms. But regardless of the quality of his Backstreet Boys parody, Mary Lee Walsh still had a sign. So to occupy Chris's time, he began investing all of his effort playing the game Animal Crossing. This would eventually culminate into what's now known as his Animal Crossing documentary, an hour-long showcase of his in-game
Tell me
village.
why,
This would become one of
na,
Christian's
ain't
greatest
nothing but a
accomplishments, as he submitted it to the
heartbreak.
Nintendo Power
Tell me
magazine
why.
and managed to actually get featured. Some claim it was the first Let's Play ever made, though this is difficult to prove. On January 1st,
And
2004,
I
Chris wrote in his diary
know.
about his New
I don't know
Year's
how that song goes.
resolution to get a romantic
And
partner.
I thought we'd see forever. But forever never
And try again he did,
came.
with his stubbornness
It's
only
so
further escalating the conflict.
hard
A few
to
weeks
say
into the new year, he wrote a
goodbye
poem titled Hard
to
Luck Quest,
yesterday.
in which he once again laments being
that
quote-unquote
was
a virgin with rage.
ouch.
Christian's frustration with his lack of romantic success was ever growing, and this new effort to overcome Mary Lee Walsh at PVCC meant trying new strategies. Instead of restraining himself to just carrying signs, the college student now began repurposing his Sonichu newsletter into a means of attracting boyfriend-free girls. From this point forward, every newsletter would end with a description of his ideal sweetheart. He includes this disclaimer.
Christian is a very shy and very thoughtful person, and will only accept person-to-person encounters, no emails or phone calls. So if you are interested, they can be found around Piedmont
What up,
Virginia
Hemlock?
Community College or Fashion Square Shopping Center.
In addition to passing around photocopies of his pamphlet, he also began hanging up more attraction
Nobody has
signs around
stealable
school,
mail,
quickly
bro.
replacing them whenever torn down. In late January, as Chris stood near his sign per usual, Mary Lee Walsh decided that enough was enough. It was finally time to put an end to his disobedience. According to Chris, she approached him stating
Who is
that
Mary
his
Lee
posters
Walsh?
were bothering both her and the student body. Chris responded that he was on his love quest, prompting her to rip the sign from his hands and tear it apart. She then lectured him, stating he would never get a girlfriend this way, before demanding that he stop his behavior immediately. She ended the confrontation by scheduling Chris to attend a meeting to discuss the string of incidents. On February 1st,
Is that his
Chris
counselor or something?
initiated an email exchange with Miss Walsh, attempting to avoid the meeting through a compromise. He promised her that he wouldn't hang any more signs around campus, so long as she allowed him to continue distributing his newsletter. He also assures that he would move her up his scale of respect by 2 points. About 48 hours later, Miss Walsh would unequivocally deny his request, requiring that they meet the following week. While what exactly occurred during this meeting is uncertain, a few key details are known. At one point, Chris talked with Sonichu as if he was real, claiming to Miss Walsh that his character communicated through him. This caused the dean of students to talk to Chris quote-unquote rudely and hoarsely. In retaliation, Chris stood up, cupped his hands to his side, and thrusted them forward, miming a powerful beam of energy. He
Get
shouted
fucked.
at the top of his lungs his personal variant of a phrase from the anime Dragon Ball Z.
Hell
that he
fucking
legitimately
yeah.
believed would bring bad luck
Get
to the victim.
fucking
Unsurprisingly,
wrecked,
this
Dean.
did little to move Miss Walsh, who declared a ban on
Fat
not
Claptrap
just
can
his
finally
attraction
see.
sign,
Now
but
it's
the
time to get to
distribution of his
Sanctuary.
newsletter as well.
Unfortunately,
This
one man
enraged
stands between
Chris
you
to
and the last
point
free
where he
city
privately
on Pandora.
declared
His
war.
name, Kevin Flint.
Mary Lee Walsh made it illegal to distribute
Let's go.
the news dash. I am very
Be on the lookout for
angry
stronger
at
shields with
that.
special abilities.
In response, I plan to incite the masses
Should I?
and hopefully demand a
63
return to the news
bucks.
dash, so my
Yeah, I'll
chances
take
of
it.
getting a girlfriend
I'm
will
desperate,
be
bro. I want that.
Adding
I
fuel
want
to the
that
fire
doll-
was
that
Mary
doll
Lee
pistol in
Walsh's
the-
attempts to convince Bob and Barbara to remove
Yes.
Chris
Yes.
from the college, giving them flashbacks to their conflict with Nathaniel Green. They not only refused but became extremely upset.
How much
During
money
summer
do I
break
have?
that year,
I want that
Chris
doll
began
pistol in the vending machine.
exploring more locations to lure her out with his
No, I need
attraction
194.
sign. Now dubbing them attraction locations, he began standing at the Charlottesville Fashion Square Mall. This would become the testing ground of a new strategy he'd adopted after watching a lot of anime. Essentially, his plan was to attach a paper heart to a piece of red string, and then throw it at women. He would then reel the string back in, expecting them to follow. Unsurprisingly, in less than a week after conceiving the strategy, his plan was foiled when a mall security guard noticed and confiscated the string from him. This would lead Chris to coin the term jerk cop, later abbreviated to jerk op, to describe
the jerk op. Hell yeah.
His next run-in with mall staff would occur 8 weeks into his loitering. This was when the same mall security guard from last time approached him, to which Chris pulled out some of his homemade trading cards that told the story of the Lonesome Virgin. He later bragged about intimidating the officer by shouting no directly in his face. Only 5 days later, Chris was approached once again, this time becoming even more belligerent. It escalated to the point of him being detained and forbidden to return from the mall without supervision from his parents. As Chris entered his 5th year at PVCC, he still held resentment towards Miss Walsh in spite of his off-campus.
I like the Aegis pistols.
It was around this point Chris left an inflammatory
it's,
note
the
for
detail on the gun's
students,
really cool.
expressing his dislike for her. Included was an illustration of an intimidating glare. This, as it would turn out, would be his downfall. Taking into account their previous quarrels, the message was interpreted by the school's administration as a form of harassment. After several hearings deliberating on his fate, the administration ultimately decided it'd be best to temporarily suspend Chris from the campus. Enraged by this development, Bob and Barbara decided to incite the masses themselves, allegedly penning a letter to the White House demanding action. Nothing came of their endeavors, and per the suspension, the criteria for him to return included anger management classes, a psychological evaluation, and social skills counseling. Strangely, it appeared the only reason Chris was upset about his ban was the fact he'd be losing the campus as an attraction zone.
It's been over a week since my suspension.
No,
I am depressed,
I
lonely, sad, and bored. I have nowhere to go to attract a boyfriend-free woman. I'll be writing to Santa Claus this year, hoping that he will bring me one.
Whilst all this was going on, Chris became more invested in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, participating in his first tournament at the game place. It was there that he first met Megan Schroeder, an 18-year-old artist who shared many of the same interests as him. They quickly became friends, as she became Chris's first gal pal since leaving high school. Around this time, Chris attended the psychiatric evaluation he was required by PVCC's administration to receive. As of writing, it is the only objective, independent, professional evaluation of Christian as an adult.
Mr. Chandler is a 22-year-old man with a history of developmental delays and autism. Despite these limitations, he seems to have been quite successful in maximizing his academic abilities. Despite his significant delays in language, he has over the years developed relatively effective communication skills. He is left, however, with a severe degree of social awkwardness and seems to have good insight into this. He is left feeling somewhat frustrated as he has a strong desire for companionship, although his social limitations prevent him from being able to realize this in the way in which he would like. He has been on antidepressants for many years, and it is not entirely clear what role they play. Based on the information available at this time, the patient doesn't seem to pose a significant threat to himself or anyone else. There is some suggestion that the anger control has been a problem, although how that has manifested itself is unclear. He certainly has no history of physical violence, which would suggest any future risk.
Compared to Christian's state today, this paints a picture of a man that was still, relatively speaking, at the beginning of his descent. A time when he was more lonely than in high school, but still
Gunrunner 1, let's
went
go.
outside and had modest social interaction at the game place. It's worth noting
Let's
that
do
the
Shielded
examiner
Favors first.
concluded that Chris
Hey.
should receive further treatment.
Why can't I pick it?
Advice that his parents seemed to ignore. With a tumultuous home life
What the hell?
accompanied by years of a society Chris
We
felt
live in
he
one?
was weighed down by, the
You have to wait for him to stop
self-described
talking?
virgin with rage decided to yet again pick up his pen. With all he had learned and experienced,
I'm gonna go use the
it was
bathroom
at
for a
this
little bit. I'll be
point
back.
He would create what is now seen as his magnum opus, the Sonic Chew comics. Not only did this series become his masterpiece, but more importantly brought attention his way. While up until this point he was known only by those in his local vicinity, soon enough a little image board would stumble upon his work, and in the process make internet history, as Christian Weston Chandler becomes possibly the most notable person in the history of the World Wide Web.
Good, feels good.
Yeah. Is there anything else? What would you like to do? I mean, you guys like maybe want to go to McDonald's or something like that, or we could hang out in the gazebo maybe.
Well, it's dark out now,
It
so might not be able to see the gazebo.
That's true.
But I can point out, it's behind the house, and you know where the pen is, the green at the fence, right at that's alongside the road there.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, well, anyway, you're driving down Westwood.
Right.
And you look to your right. You will see a doghouse before you see the pen. The gazebo's behind the doghouse.
Gotcha. Okay. Here we go. We got the gazebo, and then I guess
Gazebo's over here.
Watch your step. This is your light source. On the light source.
Yes.
All right.
It's a good place to
It's a
hang
very
out
low
here.
gazebo.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you gotta watch your head if you're
Oh.
more than.
So I'm able to stand barely, but at 5'10".
If you're Brad Garrett, you would have to hunch down.
Yeah.
He's like more than 6 feet.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, watch your step.
So Christine, do any of your neighbors know about Chris Chan and everything that goes on online?
Among which, yes.
Have the trolls ever harassed them?
Not that I'm aware of. I pray they haven't. Anyway, Hi guys. I'll walk y'all back to your vehicles.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I'll walk y'all back to your Autobots.
Alright, yeah, we're gonna start some 3-player Tetris here.
Actually, 4-player. I have.
Can you play it just 3-player if Jesse's gonna be filming?
Oh yeah, I suppose we can play a 3-player. It's nuts. And my mom's clapping at the dogs, and everything's falling. Freaking gravity! It busts me. It confounds me. Ah! Organized chaos. This is my creative method. Anyway, I just gotta plug in my switch dock because I didn't have enough plugs left to do this, and figure out how we can. I got 2 pairs of Joy-Cons, obviously, so see if we can play Tetris this way.
Use those.
I'm trying to set up here, see if we can all play with these Joy-Cons. In that case, I gotta find the regular basic controller I have. Nearby,
We're gonna need to find that.
GameCube adapter, maybe.
It's alright, I got
Yeah,
no,
GameCube
no,
adapter.
we don't have GameCube.
You got
We
the
don't
Pro
have that
controller?
option. No, I don't have an adapter for GameCube.
Do you have the Pro controller?
I have a Pro controller, I just don't know where it is right now. Because the dogs are barking, they're driving me bonkers. It's definitely does not get boring around here. Just not focused right now, God. I'm gonna try an Xbox controller, see if I can plug that into a USB port. See if that'll work. Plug this into the puss.
Alright. Now let's see. A Microsoft controller be compatible with a Nintendo system is the moment of truth. No.
No! Dog, shut up! You do that one more time, I'm gonna be like.
Let's just make the video find the controller. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
Up.
Alright.
Up.
Oh, here we go. Alright.
Hey.
Right when you said that.
I just need to turn it
There's no batteries.
on.
Oh.
It has batteries, I just gotta turn it on.
I understand, yeah.
Those dogs, oh shut up! I'm gonna bite my head off! solitude. Alright.
I'll go ahead and do the intro, I suppose.
Ugh.
Hey guys, it's Kopitz. I'm here with Christine, Weston Chandler, and the gamer from Mars, or Art. Today we're going to be playing some Tetris 99. It's going to be a fun time.
Working on this.
When we last saw Chris Chan, he was left heartbroken after his first girlfriend, Blanca Weiss, had revealed herself to be nothing more than a catfish scheme created by trolls. His video message after the fact made it seem like he had spiraled into a horribly depressive state, and many expected him to take an extended hiatus from the internet to recover. Shockingly, less than a week later, Chris was seen chatting on the forums of the Sonic Chew fan website. In these conversations, Chris revealed that he was dating a new woman named Chloe, who he had met while pre-ordering a Little Big Planet at GameStop. He never mentioned Chloe again after this, and the timeline he gave would mean that he started dating her while he was still with Blanca, so most people believe that he made the whole thing up. Christian had proven that, no matter how badly he was hurt, he would always come back for more. As such, trolling attempts only escalated from there. On October 31st, 2008, a troll went to Chris's house and left a sign reading Encyclopedia Dramatica on his front lawn. This didn't elicit a very big response, but it did mark a significant turning point. The internet and the real world were becoming increasingly merged. Even if Chris did log off, the trolls would still be there. And just a few days later, a website called Quickie was founded by a user named CogsDev. This was an archive dedicated solely to the documentation and discussion of Chris's antics, something almost unheard of for previous trolling victims. It was around this time that Chris Chan was informed about a young man named Ryan Cash, who was a big fan of the Sonic Chew comic. During Chris's initial feud with ED, when he was holding the release of Sonic Chew No. 7 hostage until the site was taken down, Ryan was reportedly so distraught by the prospect of never reading any new Sonic Chew comics that he decided to take his own life. To everyone, it was obvious that this story was made up in yet another attempt to prank the autistic 20-some-year-old man. Well, obvious to everyone, that is, except for Chris himself. After some pressure from people like Vivian Guy and Panda Halo, Chris included a short tribute to Ryan in one of his update videos. However, many people saw this as insincere due to his lackluster delivery, as well as the fact that it was sandwiched between two completely unrelated announcements.
And for Ryan Cash and his family, I feel for you and I'm sorry, but best thing you could do for Ryan and yourselves, just to move on. Try to be happy. Gee, so much power. That's a lot worse than when that child locked himself in the room after seeing Optimus Prime die in the original movie. And then also on the PlayStation Network on the home.
Around this same time, Chris received an email from a man claiming to be Takashi Tezuka, a highly successful video game director at Nintendo.
While working at Nintendo, I have heard about your original character, Sonichu, from many of my coworkers who read emails sent from your fans who are asking for a Sonichu game. I eventually received a message from Shigeru Miyamoto that we at Nintendo should take the first step into creating a Sonichu game. That is why I am programming in 2 new characters into Animal Crossing City Folk, Sonichu and Rosechu. If a large number of players enjoy Sonichu and Rosechu, we will create a Sonichu game with the help of Sega.
Tezuka even included a couple of screenshots of the Sonic Chew character in Animal Crossing. As can be expected, Chris did not catch on to the fact that this was a troll. He had made no secret in the past that his dream was to one day make an official Sonic Chew game with Nintendo and Sega. Now it appeared that that dream was being delivered to him on a silver platter. A few days later, the same prankster emailed Chris again, this time posing as Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Super Mario Bros. And Legend of Zelda. For good measure, he also sent emails pretending to be a lawyer for Nintendo named James Zilberstein, or just Jay-Z for short. This was all done as a small attempt to clue Chris into the fact that it was all a joke, but he never caught on. In fact, on January 6, 2009, Chris posted a video announcing the exciting news that he was working directly with Nintendo. He also stated that, for legal reasons, he had been advised by Nintendo to go back into his old comics and change the names of characters that were based on real people. Chris obliged the troll's orders, and soon after, every issue of Sonichu that had been published received these new edits. Sarah Hammer became Nicole Rammer, Wes Isley became Walter Grisby, Megan became Meg Chan, and Mary Lee Walsh became Slawwell Ryan. Later that day, the troll emailed Chris under yet another alias. This time he was pretending to be Greg Mays, a web designer hired by Nintendo to help spruce up the Sonichu website in advance of the game. Blinded by excitement, Chris happily handed over the password to his website without question. This resulted in it quickly being taken offline. Greg emailed Chris blaming the outage on Sega filing a cease and desist order against the project. At this point, Chris finally caught on to the fact that he was being trolled, although he still was unable to see the full extent of it. Despite understanding that Greg was a fictional character, Chris was still convinced that every other person in the storyline was real, and that he was truly in contact with Shigeru Miyamoto.
Now listen, sir. I want you to restore all the files you've deleted from Sonichu.net, the Sonichu and Rosechu fan site, CWC's Pokesite 2, and the other CWC sites that were on there, where I will have my lore, his people of Nintendo, and the people of Sega, even the power of Mr. Miyamoto himself, bring in a tracking team, track you down, and force you to restore Sonichu.net in all, with a cruel, beating up, terribly painful punishment. You do not want to remain on my bad side. My fangs are sharp, and I can thirst for blood, even though I am Cherokee, not a vampire.
Chris followed this stern email with a vlog in which he expressed the same sentiment, even repeating the threat about his fangs.
You're getting it, so just listen to me, you jerk. Re-upload it, or we're gonna rain heckle on you, because I'm not afraid to show my fangs.
After the fallout with Greg, Mr. Chandler continued emailing with Miyamoto to discuss the possibility of meeting in person. A big sticking point with this was Chris's inability to pay for a plane ticket to Redmond, Washington, where the Nintendo of America offices were located. He tried multiple times to get Miyamoto to pay for the flight, but he refused, berating Chris for being unemployed and unable to pay for his own ticket. Despite the now abusive comments from the supposed top creative at Nintendo, it's still unsurprising that he fell for the story given his track record. What's more perplexing is that at a certain point, Christian brought in his parents to talk with Miyamoto, and they too seemed to believe the hoax. Barbara began to help Chris negotiate with the gaming giant, and took the opportunity to boast about how prolific she and her husband had once been in the business world, though it was riddled with grammatical errors and disjointed sentences. Trolls noted that even though Bob and Barbara apparently had such deep knowledge of business dealings, they didn't find anything odd about the fact that such an important executive had reached out to Chris directly, and why such a large company was refusing to pay for airfare. From there, the talks merely went around in circles for a while as both sides refused to back down from their positions. As the Chandler family continued their correspondence with Miyamoto, on January 12th, Greg Mays returned to the story. This time, he revealed himself to actually be Jason Kendrick.
Alright, yeah, we're gonna
I'm back.
some 3-player Tetris here.
Actually, 4-player. I have.
Can you play it just 3-player if Jesse's gonna be filming?
Oh yeah, I suppose you can't play it 3-player.
I'm gonna eat. So we're gonna switch the capture to YouTube.
And everything's falling. Freaking gravity. It busts me. It confounds me. Organized chaos. This is my creative method. Yeah, I just gotta plug in my switch dock. Cause I didn't have enough plugs left to do this. And figure out how we can. I got 2 pairs of Joy-Cons, obviously. So.
Can I just put YouTube? You.
Tetris this way.
Use those. Yeah.
I'm trying to set up here, see if we can all play with these.
You gay? I'll just put YouTube.
In that case, I gotta find the regular basic controller I have.
Media?
You're gonna need to find that.
GameCube adapter, maybe.
It's alright, I got
Yeah,
no,
GameCube
no,
adapter.
we don't have GameCube.
You got the
We
Pro
don't have that
controller?
option. I don't have an adapter for GameCube.
Do you have the Pro controller?
I have a Pro controller, I just don't know where it is right now. Because the dogs are barking, they're driving me bonkers.
We'll do video action, fuck it.
Typically does not get boring around here.
This is okay. This is the third installment of his documentary, I guess.
Plug it into a USB port. See, that'll work. Plug this into the push.
Alright. Now let's see. A Microsoft controller be compatible with a Nintendo system is the moment of truth. No.
No! Dogs, shut up! You do that one more time, I'm gonna be like.
Let's just make sure we find the controller. Yeah.
Up.
Alright.
Up.
There we go. Alright.
Hey.
Right when you said that.
I just need to turn it
There's no batteries.
on.
Oh.
It has batteries, I just gotta turn it on.
I understand.
There is a
Those dogs, oh shut up! I'm gonna bite my head off! Nice attention with stumpitude. Alright.
I'll go ahead and do the intro.
the wire on my braces is poking out.
Hey guys, it's Kopitz. I'm here with Christine Weston Chandler and the gamer from Mars, or Art. Today we're going to be playing some Tetris 99. It's going to be a fun time.
Working on this.
And it's poking the side of my mouth, dude. I hate it.
When we
Hurts.
last saw Chris Chan, he was left heartbroken after his first girlfriend, Blanca Weiss, had revealed herself to be nothing more than a catfish scheme created by trolls. His video message after the fact made it seem like he had spiraled into a horribly depressive state, and many expected him to take an extended hiatus from the internet to recover. Shockingly, less than a week later, Chris was seen chatting on the forums of the Sonic Chew fan website. In these conversations, Chris revealed that he was dating a new woman named Chloe, who he had met while pre-ordering a Little Big Planet at GameStop. He never mentioned Chloe again after this, and the timeline he gave would mean that he started dating her while he was still with Blanca, so most people believe that he made the whole thing up. Christian had proven that, no matter how badly he was hurt, he would always come back for more. As such, trolling attempts only escalated from there. On October 31st, 2008, a troll went to Chris's house and left a sign. Reading Encyclopedia Dramatica on his front lawn. This didn't elicit a very big response, but it did mark a significant turning point. The internet and the real world were becoming increasingly merged. Even if Chris did log off, the trolls would still be there. And just a few days later, a website called Quickie was founded by a user named CogsDev. This was an archive dedicated solely to the documentation and discussion of Chris's antics. Something almost unheard of for previous trolling victims. It was around this time that Chris Chan was informed about a young man named Ryan Cash, who was a big fan of the Sonic Chew comic. During Chris's initial feud with ED, when he was holding the release of Sonic Chew number 7 hostage until the site was taken down, Ryan was reportedly so distraught by the prospect of never reading any new Sonic Chew comics that he decided to take his own life. To everyone, it was obvious that this story was made up in yet another attempt to prank the autistic 20-some-year-old man. Well, obvious to everyone, that is, except for Chris himself. After some pressure from people like Vivian Guy and Panda Halo, Chris included a short tribute to Ryan in one of his update videos. However, many people saw this as insincere due to his lackluster delivery, as well as the fact that it was sandwiched between two completely unrelated announcements.
And for Ryan Cash and his family, I feel for you and I'm sorry, but best thing you could do for Ryan and yourselves, just to move on. Try to be happy. Jeez, so much power. That's a lot worse than when that child locked himself in the room after seeing Optimus Prime die in the original movie. And then also on the PlayStation Network on the home.
Around this same time, Chris received an email from a man claiming to be Takashi Tezuka, a highly successful video game director at Nintendo.
While working at Nintendo, I have heard about your original character, Sonichu, from many of my coworkers who read emails sent from your fans who are asking for a Sonichu game. I eventually received a message from Shigeru Miyamoto that we at Nintendo should take the first step into creating a Sonichu game. That is why I am programming in 2 new characters into Animal Crossing City Folk, Sonichu and Rosechu. If a large number of players enjoy Sonichu and Rosechu, we will create a Sonichu game with the help of Sega.
Tezuka even included a couple of screenshots of the Sonichu character in Animal Crossing. As can be expected, Chris did not catch on to the fact that this was a troll. He had made no secret in the past that his dream was to one day make an official Sonichu game with Nintendo and Sega. Now it appeared that that dream was being delivered to him on a silver platter. A few days later, the same prankster emailed Chris again, this time posing as Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Super Mario Bros. And Legend of Zelda. For good measure, he also sent emails pretending to be a lawyer for Nintendo named James Zilberstein, or just Jay-Z for short. This was all done as a small attempt to clue Chris into the fact that it was all a joke, but he never caught on. In fact, on January 6, 2009, Chris posted a video announcing the exciting news that he was working directly with Nintendo. He also stated that, for legal reasons, he had been advised by Nintendo to go back into his old comics and change the names of characters that were based on real people. Chris obliged the troll's orders, and soon after, every issue of Sonichu that had been published received these new edits. Sarah Hammer became Nicole Rammer, Wes Isley became Walter Grisby, Megan became Meg Chan, and Mary Les lied to his old that, for legal reasons, he had been advised by Nintendo to go back into his old comics and change the names of characters that were based on real people. Chris obliged the troll's orders, and soon after, every issue of Sonichu that had been published received these new edits. Sarah Hammer became Nicole Rammer, Wes Isley became Walter Grisby, Megan became Meg Chan, and Mary Lee Walsh became Slawwell Ryan. Later that day, the troll emailed Chris under yet another alias. This time he was pretending to be Greg Mays, a web designer hired by Nintendo to help spruce up the Sonichu website in advance of the game. Blinded by excitement, Chris happily handed over the password to his website without question. This resulted in it quickly being taken offline. Greg emailed Chris blaming the outage on Sega filing a cease and desist order against the project. At this point, Chris finally caught on to the fact that he was being trolled, although he still was unable to see the full extent of it. Despite understanding that Greg was a fictional character, Chris was still convinced that every other person in the storyline was real, and that he was truly in contact with Shigeru Miyamoto.
Now listen, sir. I want you to restore all the files you deleted from Sonichu.net, the Sonichu and Rosechu fan site, CWC's Pokesite 2, and the other CWC sites that were on there, where I will have my lore, his people of Nintendo, and the people of Sega, even the power of Mr. Miyamoto himself, bring in a tracking team, track you down, and force you to restore Sonichu.net in all, with a cruel, beating up, terribly painful punishment. You do not want to remain on my bad side. My fangs are sharp, and I can thirst for blood, even though I am Cherokee, not a vampire.
Chris followed this stern email with a vlog in which he expressed the same sentiment, even repeating the threats about his fangs.
You're getting it, so just listen to me, you jerk. Re-upload it, or we're gonna rain heckle on you, because I'm not afraid to show my fangs.
After the fallout with Greg, Mr. Chandler continued emailing with Miyamoto to discuss the possibility of meeting in person. A big sticking point with this was Chris's inability to pay for a plane ticket to Redmond, Washington, where the Nintendo of America offices were located. He tried multiple times to get Miyamoto to pay for the flights, but he refused, berating Chris for being unemployed and unable to pay for his own ticket. Despite the now abusive comments from the supposed top creative at Nintendo, it's still unsurprising that he fell for the story given his track record. What's more perplexing is that at a certain point, Christian brought in his parents to talk with Miyamoto, and they too seemed to believe the hoax. Barbara began to help Chris negotiate with the gaming giant, and took the opportunity to boast about how prolific she and her husband had once been in the business world, though it was riddled with grammatical errors and disjointed sentences. Trolls noted that even though Bob and Barbara apparently had such deep knowledge of business dealings, they didn't find anything odd about the fact that such an important executive had reached out to Chris directly, and why such a large company was refusing to pay for airfare. From there, the talks merely went around in circles for a while as both sides refused to back down from their positions. As the Chandler family continued their correspondence with Miyamoto, on January 12th, Greg Mays returned to the story. This time, he revealed himself to actually be Jason Kendrick Howell, the original troll who created the Encyclopedia Dramatica page in the first place. This unsurprisingly was just another lie, but Chris took the bait without question. As Jason was still holding Chris's website hostage, he offered him a deal. He would return the domain name if Chris posted a video coming out as either straight or gay, with the choice being up to him. Chris unsurprisingly chose the latter in an incredibly short video, and held up a poster of Britney Spears as proof. Jason was not satisfied by this offering and demanded Chris make a longer video. In this upload, Chris goes into great detail about how all his life he had gotten along better with women than he did with men. He even holds up a copy of a Playboy magazine this time as further proof of his heterosexuality. The troll was much happier with this, though he wasn't done just yet, asking Chris for one last video where he would film his parents telling Chris how proud they were of him. Christian at first agreed, but it seems that it was never actually filmed, as he apparently decided that it would be easier to just make a new website rather than continue to jump through hoops for Jason's amusement. Shortly thereafter, a new video was posted announcing the creation of sonicchew.info. That same day, Jason sent Chris another email, revealing that he was not actually Jason at all. It was just another pseudonym used by the true man behind all of this, Clyde Cash, the brother of Ryan Cash, who you might remember as the boy who had killed himself over Sonic Chew. Clyde vowed revenge against Chris due to his brother's death, and had devoted his life to making him suffer. Even the famously gullible Chris did not believe this story at first, instead thinking Jason was just lying to get out of trouble.
Very interesting. I will know Clyde Cash as your nickname among my printed written information I have of you when I go to the police department to report you. Hey, do me a huge favor. Stand in the middle of heaviest traffic and get run over. I pray to God and Jesus for your death, Jason Kendrick Howell.
As time went on, Chris would eventually accept Clyde Cash as real. Many trolls would use the name as an alias, and Chris would come to know Clyde as his arch nemesis, the mysterious figure pulling the strings behind every trolling scheme in his life. After his grand entrance, Clyde formed an organization called the Private Villa of Corrupted Citizens, or PVCC for short. This was named after the villainous organization from the Sonic Chew comic series, which itself was named after Piedmont, Virginia Community College. Clyde's version of the PVCC was meant to be an elite team of only the best trolls, who would team up to devise new ways to mess with Chris. After revealing himself, Clyde's first act of trolling was to hack into Chris Chan's account and send an email to Miyamoto pretending to come out of the closet. Please keep in mind that Miyamoto and Clyde Cash were being played by the same person, but Chris was not privy to this fact and was thus horrified when he discovered what had been sent from his account. He quickly established that he had been hacked and reaffirmed his heterosexuality. Mr. Chandler also posted a video directed at Miyamoto in order to confirm his identity. In this upload, Chris held up two pieces of evidence: his custom Sonic Chew Wii remote and nunchuck, as well as his driver's license. In another amusing detail, Chris chose to open the video by bowing to the camera as a sign of respect. With the introduction of Clyde and the PVCC, the line between reality and fiction was beginning to blur. The trolls were turning Chris's life into one of the Saturday morning cartoons he was influenced so much by as a child, complete with heroes, villains, and soon enough, love triangles. Because as hard as it may be to believe, there was yet another trolling effort running perpendicular to the Miyamoto saga. Before going any further into today's story, we'll first need to jump back to December of 2008, before the Clyde Cash saga even began.
I hate the homos. I actually do have a past story, as I have realized from repressed memories back from the Greene County days. But I will not go further than that, because y'all would have a field day.
Around this time, someone going by the name Cassie Rosechew informed Chris that she had created a message board called Sonic Chew Girls, where Chris's female fans could gather and discuss their love for him and his comic. The users of Sonic Chew Girls all heaped compliments onto Chris, treating him like a king and all saying that they would happily have sex with him. Chris clearly loved having such a large harem of women singing his praises, and in February of 2009, he even went so far as to ship Cassie Rosechew a box full of locks of his hair, which she was meant to distribute amongst the other Sonic Chew girls. Reportedly, his hair was greasy and had an unpleasant smell. Of all the users of the message board, one stood out from the rest, a young woman named Julie Milvana, better known by her screen name of Blue Spike. Now, Chris had not met Julie on the Sonic Chew Girls message board. She had emailed Chris a few weeks prior and the two had quickly hit it off. Unbeknownst to Chris though, Blue Spike led a double life as a member of the PVCC. At the time when Chris and Julie's relationship began to get more intense, Chris had also restarted a romance with his old flame Sarah Mackenzie, aka Panda Halo. During one night on the Sonic Chew Girls message board, Julie was expressing her displeasure with this relationship, and she believed Chris would be much happier with her. It seemed as though Chris agreed, as he stated he would break up with Sarah in order to date Julie. At that moment, Sarah just so happened to join the chat, and was immediately horrified by what she saw. The three of them began arguing, resulting in Julie leaving the chat and threatening to kill herself. To this, Chris would only say, "Damn." After things calmed down a bit, Julie returned to the conversation, and Chris revealed that he had feelings for both girls. Eventually, he could no longer handle the stress of this discussion and logged off for the night. It would appear that Christian used this time to think about his decision, which was revealed on January 5th with the release of a new Sonic Chew episode. Most of the story was a fairly standard, albeit bizarre and borderline incomprehensible Sonic Chew adventure. The only notable part is at the end, where Chris talks about his struggles choosing between all the women who had been throwing themselves at him lately. He states that the decision was made easier when two paths were taken away with the help of God and Jesus. He starts by bringing up Sarah Jackson, the girl he had been talking to a few months prior who he believed had died in a car accident. Chris chose to memorialize this deceased woman by depicting the moment of her death, and including a drawing of a truck ramming directly into her car. He also brings up Jessie Ruddy, another lady he had been talking to who had revealed herself to be a troll. He ended this section by proclaiming Sarah Mackenzie to be his true sweetheart, officially completing his love quest. Chris did not even mention Julie in this comic, so it's entirely possible that it was completed before he started talking to her. Either way, at the time, he remained devoted to Sarah. Later in January, Chris engaged in an internet relay chat, or IRC, with Clyde Cash along with his friend and popular entrepreneur Billy Mays. In this convo, Chris's immediate priority was to try to get Clyde to be nicer to him. He started by once again offering his condolences for Ryan's death, and tried to relate to him by mentioning how distraught he was after the passing of his dog Patty. This strategy did not work, as it only angered Clyde, who derided Chris for daring to compare a dog to his brother. Chris still doubled down on this point, claiming to have loved Patty as though she was a sibling. He also made an attempt to gain Clyde's respect, claiming that he was courageous for enduring being trolled for so long. Unsurprisingly, these strategies proved unsuccessful, as Clyde and Billy Mays seemed more concerned with finding new ways to annoy their target. Things continued with Christian being tormented by his inability to lose his virginity despite having so many women throwing themselves at him. Clyde brought up the subject of Chris's then-girlfriend Sarah Mackenzie, who he claimed to have raped, a point Chris seemed unfazed by. The troll then decided that the only way to truly infuriate Chris was to resort to a tried and true method, calling him a homosexual. He brought up the now infamous image of Chris wearing his mother's underwear, citing it as proof that he secretly liked men. This is what made Chris finally lose his temper, as he tried in vain to convince Clyde that he wore traditional male underwear most of the time. This angry outburst resulted in Chris stating, "I have numbers of pairs of dirty crapped briefs." The unprompted admission to frequently soiling himself became another prominent meme in the Chris Chan trolling community, and only further cemented people's desire to anger him just to see what outrageous thing he'd say next. The following day, Chris and Clyde engaged in another IRC, this time joined by his girlfriend Sarah Mackenzie. Sarah started by confirming that she had indeed been raped by Clyde, and added that she was now pregnant with his child. Sarah offered Chris an ultimatum. If he managed to turn Sonichu into a successful franchise, she would become his wife and raise the child with him. This barely seemed to affect Chris, as he even gave Sarah his blessing to move in with her supposed rapist if she chose. Ultimately, this trolling attempt proved not to be very fruitful, although it would more or less mark the end of his relationship with Sarah. This breakup would not keep Chris down for long though, as he decided to immediately jump back into things with Julie. The two of them began talking frequently again over Mumble, a voice chat application similar to Discord or Skype. Julie took the opportunity to deepen the lore of her character. She told Chris that she came from the fictional country of Molvania, and that her homeland had been in the midst of a political upheaval after the assassination of their dictator. Chris almost Googled it to check the legitimacy of these claims, coming so close to finally figuring out that he was being lied to, but Julie talked him out of it. These conversations also had the tendency to get a bit sexual. Chris apparently had spent a long while thinking about what their first time together would be like, as he went into graphic detail describing every aspect of how he imagined that night going. He talked about how they would begin with making out before moving on to intercourse, and described which positions they would take and the order in which they would use them. He even stated that he planned on eating a good deal of strawberries beforehand in order to make his fluids taste better. Julie was fully supporting this discussion all the way through, telling Chris that she was getting aroused by the thought of it. It appeared that all was going good until Clyde Cash infiltrated the chat and began tormenting Chris. They seemed to fill the classic archetypes of hero and villain, with Julie acting as the damsel in distress. The autistic man's arch nemesis threatened to harm Julie unless Chris gave in to his demands. He was to make a 3-minute-long video in which he told the world he was gay. Chris agreed, although he formulated a plan to beat Clyde at his own game. On February 5th, 2009, Chris posted a video in which he appears to come out of the closet, though secretly doesn't. Let me explain. You see, Chris was unwilling to make the coming out video for his nemesis, so he instead figured out a loophole. In the video, rather than saying he was gay, he instead referred to himself as a gaybian. This was his made-up term for a male lesbian. In other words, a man who is attracted to women. In addition, Christian also hid a number of clues in the video so his true fans would be able to tell he was not being entirely truthful. He held an Optimus Prime toy, which he had previously referred to as a symbol of true masculinity, and displayed a Sailor Moon poster in the background to show his love for women. He also chose not to wear his Sonichu medallion, which his fans knew meant that he was not telling the truth. To put it simply, Clyde was not impressed, demanding that Chris do it again without the word gaybian. Chris relented, but only on the condition that Clyde leave Julie alone after it was finished. The leader of the PVCC agreed to these terms, but he still wanted to be able to send her chocolates and flowers. Chris apparently thought this was an acceptable compromise, and he posted the new video later that same day.
I'm gay. I'm gay. I'm gay. I said it.
It was clear that this was a man who could not handle the slightest notion that anyone might believe he was attracted to other men. And the very next day, Chris posted a video clarifying that he had only pretended to come out of the closet to protect Julie, despite the fact that he had no concrete proof that she was safe from Clyde just yet. Christian also addressed another demand Clyde had made for him to clean up his room and get rid of some of the toys in order to appear more mature. Chris claimed he had already gotten started on this task by showing a destroyed vibrator he had received for free with a large order from the adult website Adam and Eve. Despite claiming to have never actually used this device, he believed that getting rid of it would satisfy Clyde's desires. Chris's next video would address the Black Saturday bushfires that had been sweeping across Victoria, Australia at the time. He expressed concern for Sarah Mackenzie, as he hadn't heard from her in some time, and thus was worried she had been killed in the natural disaster. Many mocked Chris due to the fact that the fires were nowhere near the part of Australia that Sarah lived in, let alone the fact that she was not real. Regardless, he proceeded to beg Sarah to contact him to confirm if she decided to stay with him or go with Clyde. He apparently still viewed Sarah as his sweetheart, despite his sexual conversations with Julie since the last time he had spoken to her. Chris and Julie also continued to have sexually charged chats over Mumble at around the same time. She was able to get Chris to reveal even more embarrassing details about himself, most notably being that he would occasionally drink his own semen, or as he would call it, recycling it. As he explained it, by consuming the fluids, he would keep his sperm count high and ensure that none of his potential future children would be lost. In addition, Christian admitted to having semi-frequent intrusive thoughts telling him that he was a homosexual. He even told Julie that he had inserted some of the Adam and Eve products into his rectum just to see how it felt, but he did not enjoy it. The love-struck man obviously believed he was telling Julie these secrets in confidence, but as always, they would quickly leak onto the internet. Not only was Julie a troll, but several other members of the PVCC would often lurk in these chats, recording them to find any new insight into Chris's life. Some of these people also took the opportunity to mess with Chris further. On Valentine's Day 2009, as Chris and Julie were engaged in a particularly sexual discussion, pranksters began calling the Chandler family's landline in order to get his parents to walk in on him. They eventually succeeded by telling Bob that Chris was planning to kill himself, which prompted the elderly man to run in on his son, catching him with his pants down. This caused Bob to get very upset, as he threatened to take away his adult son's internet privileges. His choice words of, "Get away from the internet, I'm cutting it down right now," earned Bob the nickname, the Lumberjack. Only a few days later, a video titled "For Julie's Eyes Only" was leaked onto a porn website. This upload showed Chris completely naked as he had intercourse with his blow-up doll while calling out Julie's name. It quickly gained an impressive 3 million views, becoming one of the most watched Chris Chan videos of all time. When he confronted Julie about it, she claimed that her little brother, Max, had hacked into her account and leaked it. The next day, Chris had a conversation over Mumble with Clyde, and a few other members of the PVCC, or as they were now calling themselves, the Miscreants. The trolls seemed to be relishing their new roles as cartoon villains, altering their voices and mannerisms to be as over-the-top and evil as possible. Clyde stated that their mission was to keep Chris a virgin for the rest of his life, mirroring Mary Lee Walsh's goals from the Sonic Chew comic. They may have been trying to provide a fantasy for Chris, but perhaps on the same level, Chris was providing a fantasy for them. Clyde and the Miscreants dropped many large revelations on Chris during this chat. They revealed that not only was Max one of them, but so were Blanca Weiss, Jason Kendrick Howell, and Sarah Mackenzie. On the subject of Sarah, Clyde also assured him that she survived the bushfires. As this was happening, Max took control of the Blue Spike account and began using it to message Chris. He told him that the Miscreants had kidnapped Julie and were holding her hostage at their secret headquarters in Cleveland, Ohio. A few days later, Chris received an email from Clyde reaffirming this claim, and adding that they were planning to ship her off to China. They then gave Chris an address where he could supposedly rescue her. Now by this point, Chris had proven himself to be able to believe some pretty outlandish things, but most of the Miscreants thought that this was still a bridge too far. Even if he did believe the story, many assumed that he would not actually go through with the journey. Surprising everyone though, in the early morning of February 25th, Chris got in his car and began making the drive to Ohio. He departed without telling his parents, choosing instead to leave a note informing them of what was happening. This was the first time Chris had ever left the state by himself, so when Bob and Barbara discovered the note, they began to panic. The distraught parents called the police and tried to file a missing person case for their son. But when Chris gave them a call upon reaching the outskirts of Cleveland, they calmed down. Chris arrived at the address the Miscreants had given him a day later, but when he rang the doorbell, he was greeted by an elderly woman who had never heard of the names Julie or Clyde Cash before. Even after he was told that no person of his description lived there, a suspicious Chris asked around a few neighbors' houses before realizing that they didn't know anything either. He proceeded to drive home. Despite the whole ordeal being nothing more than a wild goose chase, Christian Weston Chandler seemed to be in high spirits after his solo road trip. This was the most independent thing he had ever done, and this taste of freedom seemed to excite him. Even the trolls had to applaud Chris for being willing to step so far out of his comfort zone to rescue the woman he loved, even if it was just a prank. Their reasons for making him do it may have been cruel, but in a strange way, the end result seemed to be a positive one. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for what would come next, because on March 3rd, Chris was once again hacked, this time by Max, who took control of his website, Yahoo, and PlayStation Network account. This resulted in a long, infamous Skype call between the two of them. While Max's side of the recording is a bit unintelligible, whatever he was saying clearly made Chris viscerally upset. He told Chris that the Miscreants were still holding Julie hostage, and gave him a choice. He could either save Julie or get his accounts back. Ultimately, Chris chose to save Julie. After the decision was made, Max began threatening to put Chris's PSN account up for auction on eBay. Even though he had chosen Julie, Christian still begged the troll not to go through with it. He didn't even seem to mind if he didn't get it back. For some reason, he was just desperate for it not to be sold. And this is when Max saw an opportunity. He began making ludicrous demands of Chris in order to keep the account off of eBay, including dancing for him as well as making love with the manager of the game place. At some point, Max made fun of Chris by accusing him of not having genitals. While no video recording exists of this conversation, based on Max's reaction, it can be inferred that Chris exposed himself on camera to prove him incorrect. After some deliberation, Max's demands became focused on Chris's Sonic Chew medallion. He tossed around ideas for things Chris could do with his prized possession, including setting it aflame and ejaculating on it. Ultimately, the troll decided on the cruelest thing possible, making Chris insert the medallion into his anus. Despite the only thing at stake being a PlayStation Network account, Chris decided this was an acceptable trade-off. As just stated, no video of this ordeal exists online, but Max can be heard laughing with sadistic glee as Chris repeats how miserable this whole experience is making him. Eventually, other members of the miscreants joined the call, and were horrified by what they saw, quickly turning on Max and telling him to cut it out. The sadist wasn't willing to give up his depraved fun so easily though, as he continued making increasingly crueler demands of Chris, such as telling him to burn his own house down. Luckily, by this point, Chris was realizing the tides were turning in his favor and finally had enough, telling Max that he would no longer do as asked. With the jig being up, Max dropped the bombshell reveal on Chris Chan. Julie never existed. As it turns out, both his sweetheart and Max had been characters played by the troll Blue Spike, a boy that was only 13 years of age. Blue Spike then threatened to report Chris to the FBI, as he had been having sexual conversations and sending explicit material to a minor for months. Hearing what was going down, Clyde joined the call and attempted to reel in the teenager's antics. He tried in vain to convince Chris that Julie was real and still being held hostage in Ohio, but at that point the damage was done. The 13-year-olds had torn down the entire facade that Clyde spent months building up. Despite his cruel methods, on some level, Clyde seemed to believe he was helping Chris take some control of his life and gain maturity. But Blue Spike didn't care about that, as he merely wanted the autistic man to suffer. The following day, Christian had a chat over Mumble with the miscreants sans Blue Spike, where he stated he felt sick after the previous day's events. There was a notable change of tone from the pranksters here, as they were clearly treating Chris more nicely, presumably out of a sense of guilt. That didn't stop them entirely, of course. Clyde Cash mentioned that he had Blue Spike killed for what he had done, to which Chris could only respond, "That's sad." For a short while after this incident, the trolls chose to back off, and Chris made a conscious effort to talk to fewer people over the World Wide Web. But as always, it wouldn't be long until both sides were back to their old ways. In fact, a new troll would soon enter the picture.
Good evening, citizens of YouTube. I must be quiet because it's at night. I don't want to wake up my parents, so please forgive me for not talking loud, and I hope all you can hear me.
Robert Simmons was a man who contacted Chris during the early days of the trolling, posing as an autistic Sonic Chew fan, and was able to quickly gain the gullible man's trust. The two maintained a friendly correspondence over the internet until March 15th, 2009. When Robert visited Chris's church in order to attend a service with him and Bob. Unbeknownst to the father and son, Robert was wearing a microphone to record the entire encounter. Nothing much of interest was said on this recording though. Robert and Bob chatted for a bit about the trolling Chris had been receiving, and Chris gave Robert his autograph. The real point of interest in this audio comes at the end, when Robert gets into his car and begins talking with an unidentified co-conspirator. The two of them appeared to be planning something, but at that point it was unclear exactly what this was. That same week, Chris received a phone call from a girl named Emily, asking if he'd be interested on going on a date with her. Still rebounding from Julie, Chris agreed, and the date was set for March 16th. It should go without saying at this point that Emily was a troll too. In fact, she was the one who had put the Encyclopedia Dramatica sign in Chris's yard a few months prior. The two decided to meet up at the now iconic Fashion Square Mall. Chris's former favorite spot for picking up women. When the day came, Chris arrived first, but quickly got too stressed out and left before Emily showed up. Even though she was a troll, this was still the closest thing to a real date Chris had ever been on. Upon arriving home, he posted a video apologizing to Emily, asking if they could reschedule for a new time for their date. In this upload, Chris also cites his parents as the reason for backing out at the last second.
But my mom was in disbelief, but also my father was in full belief, and still all the conflicting opinions and whatnot. It just made me feel unsure.
He stated that if they did arrange a new day to go out on, he would not tell his mother about it. Shortly thereafter, the female troll and Chris got in contact once again, and the new date was set. On this second meeting attempt, it was Emily who arrived at the mall early. She wore a concealed microphone, and her friend covertly recorded the meeting in order to capture what they had planned. When Chris arrived, Emily and her cohorts were surprised to see him accompanied by Bob. The trio sat down for lunch at the food court, where Bob talked incessantly to Emily, with Chris barely getting a word in edgewise. Many speculated that the now elderly man liked to talk a lot because he was so starved for attention living with Chris and Barb that he would take any opportunity he could to interact with new people. Eventually, the father did leave the two alone, and Chris and Emily walked around the mall together. The romantically impaired man made some awkward attempts to flirt. He seemed to brag about taking a shower before the date, showed her his infamous Donald Duck impression, and compared her to a character from Sailor Moon. He also asked if he could put his hand on her shoulder, to which she responded, only for a little bit. After a while, Emily told Chris that she was ready to go home. This was the cue for her partner, a man wearing a pickle costume, to emerge from a nearby store and begin flirting with her. Chris was immediately suspicious of him, asking if he had any knowledge of Sonic Chew and 4chan, but he pretended to have no idea what Chris was talking about. He then tried to get the pickle man to back off, but Emily was clearly infatuated with him. The smooth-talking pickle man girlfriend stealer next inquired if she'd be interested in going to see a film with him, and much to Chris's dismay, Emily agreed. Chris could only watch as his first ever date left him for a man dressed as a fermented cucumber. After his failed love quest with Emily, Chris was ready to move on to the next girl. And as it turns out, only a few days prior, a young woman named Ivy O'Neill had called the Chandler household to ask if Chris could give her a shout out in a video. She also sent him all of the Sonic Chew fan art she had made, as well as art of her own original characters. At this point, people had figured out that the easiest way to win Chris's affection was to either appeal to his sexual desires or to send him Sonic Chew fan art. So of course he quickly became infatuated with the young lady. Almost immediately after they started talking, Ivy began testing the limits of what she could get Chris to do. On March 20th, only a few days after the relationship began, Chris posted a video telling her that he was in love. A week later, Chris recorded a cover of the song I Need a Hero at Ivy's request. He pretended to play music on his Guitar Hero controller. He also showed a few pages from a comic he was working on, in which he and Sonic Chew rescued Ivy from Clyde. It concluded with a drawing of a shirtless, unrealistically muscular Chris standing triumphantly with Ivy on the edge of a cliff, and waving his iconic sweater like a flag. Another video requested by his new sweetheart was a tour of Chris's house, which was posted on March 27th. This offered a rare insight into the everyday life and severe hoarding problems of the Chandler family. The kitchen counters were covered by layers of unwashed dishes. They had still not taken their Christmas tree down, and the living room was so full of clutter that it was no longer usable. It was at this moment that the miscreants realized that if this was Chris's reality, it's no wonder why he would rather live in a fantasy. This house tour actually got Chris in a bit of trouble a few months later in August, when his parents discovered it. It turns out that they were concerned that the health department might see the footage and force them to move out, and wanted him to figure out a way to fix it. His solution was to upload a video screaming at people about it.
Everyone here, my mother and my father are angry at me. They're blaming at me. It's my fault. I admit it's my fault. I want everything about my power! Just get it off the internet!
Listen to me.
Yes.
Listen to me.
Yes.
Shut that goddamn thing off. I don't care what you do. You get all that stuff off of there tonight.
I'm working on it.
Go work on it.
I am
Do
working.
you realize something? Let me tell you. If the health department of Greene County sees those videos that you put on the damn internet, they could condemn our house and we would have to move out of it.
I don't know where to go.
You loaded them up there, you unload them.
I'm working on it.
Go do it.
I am doing it. I'm sorry.
Get in here and do it. I don't want to get kicked out of my house by the health department. And what you just did was stick a knife in our back and kill us.
So yeah, please get everything off of the internet now.
After this video went live, trolls began contacting the Greene County Health Department to report the Chandler family. Officials eventually did check the house out, but took no action due to the fact that the conditions of the home, terrible as they were, did not affect anyone beyond Chris, Bob, and Barbara. Going back to the spring of 2009, Chris rekindled his friendship with Joshua Martinez. This time, he managed to convince Chris that he had many friends in Hollywood, with him pretending to put the gullible man in contact with actress Vanessa Hudgens, and the two began a correspondence. Things rapidly became sexual between the two, with Chris even going so far as to tell the movie star that he loved her. However, the Sonic 2 creator quickly felt guilty about this and came clean to Ivy about the affair. He even posted a couple of videos on the subject. The first was him apologizing and had his blow-up doll stand in for Ivy. The second was him reading a Bible verse about how adultery is a sin. During this whole ordeal, the miscreants also leaked a series of private videos Chris had made for Ivy. The first of these showed Mr. Chandler drinking his own seed, in order to prove that he could change how it tasted based off of what he ate. Strangely though, he chose to mix it with orange Fanta. The second was of Chris naked in the shower, slow dancing to an imaginary Ivy. Finally, the third was of him once again naked, spanking himself as punishment for cheating. If this wasn't embarrassing enough, they also leaked a series of photos showing Chris wearing nothing but his Sonic 2 medallion and an adult diaper. These were all punishments devised by Ivy to make up for the fact that he had an emotional affair with the star of High School Musical. All of this discipline only seemed to strengthen Chris's love for Ivy, as by April 24th, he posted a video of himself pretending to propose. He did this by producing a cover of the Celine Dion song, It's All Coming Back to Me, which he played in the background. It was followed up by Chris showing off his latest comic, Sonic 2 Special Number 2, which told the story of his dream wedding. A few days later, the miscreants leaked the follow-up, Sonic 2 Special Number 3. This was made as a gift to Ivy, and was only ever meant to be seen by her. The story followed the couple's honeymoon, and them consummating the marriage. As shown prior, Chris wasn't afraid to make his comics sexual, and this was no exception. According to some, Ivy encouraged Chris to make the drawings of his genitals as accurate as possible. His solution was to place his manhood on the paper and trace over it. This resulted in his character's package being roughly the same size as his entire body, leading many fans to nickname it the Giant Penis Comic. By May, Chris decided he wanted to better control the online conversation surrounding him. With this, he created an account on Wikipedia named Chris Chan Sonic Chew, and attempted to write up a page about himself on the site. This was quickly deleted though, as it included excessively detailed personal information, and the Wikipedia admins assumed it was created by a troll. This was not a total loss though, as CogsDev, the creator of the Quickie, decided to take the opportunity to create a new website called Quickipedia, where Chris could post about himself all he liked. Aside from YouTube, this would be Chris's primary space for communicating with the public, and the new home for the Sonic 2 comic. This same month, Chris was tricked once again by Joshua Martinez, who sold him a PSP at a drastically inflated price. For some reason, this excessive spending was the final nail in the coffin for Ivy, who decided to break up with Chris soon afterward. She also cited his infidelity as another reason for leaving, but it can probably be assumed that the troll behind the Ivy persona had just gotten bored and needed an excuse to give it up. For the 2 days afterward, Chris called his ex non-stop, begging her to take him back. It got so bad that she eventually had to call Bob to make Chris leave her alone. In an instant, one of Chris's most serious relationships had ended, and he barely understood why. Accepting the rejection and trying to move on, Chris posted a video saying he would be resuming his love quest, more specifically looking for a smoke-free, non-alcoholic, non-black woman. Most importantly, he claimed that he would no longer be talking to ladies over the internet, and would only accept offers from those who approached him in real life. It seemed to many that he had finally learned his lesson. To back this up, Chris began expanding his social life and friend circle with his new gal pal, Kim Wilson, as well as a couple of her friends. The thing is, Kim was actually Emily, the girl Chris had gone on a date with a few months prior. But as baffling as it may sound, he did not seem to recognize her. Kim posted a series of vlogs depicting her time with Chris. Despite the fact that she was a troll, it seemed like she actually wanted him to enjoy himself. Most notably, one of these videos showed Chris drinking a Long Island iced tea, which was his first ever alcoholic beverage. After years of vilifying people who drank, this was a rare moment of Chris stepping out of his comfort zone. As Christian continued hanging out with Kim and her friends, he began getting a lot more confident. In July, a video was recorded with the help of a buddy titled Rollin' and Trollin', in which he gave a tour of Charlottesville while pretending it was Quickville. The most notable thing in this video was Chris's change in appearance. His famous blue and red striped sweater had been replaced with a blue t-shirt and a vest, and his Sonic Shoe medallion had been exchanged for dog tags. He wore tattoo sleeves, sunglasses, spiked bracelets, had grown a goatee, and was altering his voice. This was all done in an attempt to convince the trolls that Chris Chan had been a character this whole time, and that, in reality, he was neurotypical and fully employed. Around this time, a troll going by the name Samantha Thaddeus hacked into Chris's PSN and Club Nintendo accounts. After some emailing back and forth, with them quoting Bible verses at each other, Chris was then put in contact with Samantha's father, Jack Thaddeus. Just like many of the other trolls in the past, Jack used his position of power to see what absurd things he could get Chris to do. This included a gratuitous video of Chris humping his PlayStation 3 for 8 whole minutes straight, as well as one of him singing the song It's Okay to Be Gay. As usual, the latter of these two uploads was not satisfactory, as Chris spent the whole gay announcement with his voice filled with disgust. Because of this, he demanded a second take. In this new version, Chris wore novelty nose and mustache glasses, a hat, and a skirt taken from his blow-up doll. He also changed the lyrics in the final line to "It's not okay to be gay," as he took off the glasses, all in an attempt to circumvent the troll's demand for him to come out of the closet. Jack next requested that Chris make a puppet show of Sonic and Tails making love, but this seemed to be a line Chris was not willing to cross, as he told Jack that getting his accounts back was not worth the humiliation. Even with that being said, Samantha's father was still able to convince Chris that the miscreants were cooking up a scheme to get his social security payments taken away, as he had apparently revealed himself to not actually have autism in his Rollin' and Trollin' video. In response, Chris posted an upload clarifying that he was, in fact, unemployed and autistic. Inexplicably, all of the audio in this video was entirely through ADR.
I don't have a job, so there. And I am high functionally autistic, and I'm nearsighted, still a virgin. So there you go.
To most onlookers, Jack wasn't anything too special when it came to Chris's ever-growing gallery of trolls. However, he did open the door to the next big saga. You see, as he and Chris continued emailing, Jack sent him a link to a new video by a brand new player in the story, a young man claiming that he was the real Christian Weston Chandler. It goes without saying that Chris would not take this very well.
Captain's log. Stardate, June 21st, 2009. My name is Christian Weston Chandler.
In the summer of 2009, one of Chris's most infamous adversaries appeared on the scene. This troll had actually been posting videos since June on the YouTube channel C-Chan Sonic Chew Quick, before gaining much of a following, but that would soon change. What made him stick out from the pack was that he pretended to be Chris, doing a near spot-on imitation at that, copying his quirks and manner of speaking. He wore a brown and yellow striped sweater which he padded out with a pillow to make himself appear obese, and had a paper Sonic Chew medallion around his neck. He mimicked Chris's past antics such as his song So Need a Cute Girl, the time he was forced to make a video saying that he was gay, and his eternal feud with Clyde Cash. Trolls began referring to him as Liquid Chris, with the original now being referred to as Solid Chris, a reference to the Metal Gear video game series. The first upload that Solid Chris saw from Liquid was one in which he was claiming to sell Sonic Chew merchandise. As was displayed in the Jimmy Hill saga almost a year prior, Chris could not stand the idea of others profiting off his characters. He quickly posted an angry upload decrying Liquid.
Do not buy any more from this crappy imposter. Do not give him any more money. And he said he's going to give it to, quote-unquote, his congregation with my Elizabeth Foss. It's my congregation, not his. Who does imposter think he is? Down with him! Burn in hell!
Apparently, Chris still hadn't caught up to the established pattern, as this response only added fuel to the fire, and made Liquid go further with his scheme. Anytime Christian posted a video, Liquid would post one of his own to one-up him. For example, on July 29th, Chris made a recording of himself playing the song More Than a Feeling on Guitar Hero. Mere hours later, Liquid had posted one himself, playing the same song on an actual guitar. Trolls quickly took notice of how angry Chris got at the idea that people might believe Liquid to be the real Christian Weston Chandler. As such, they decided to start circulating a rumor that Solid Chris was actually named Ian Brandon Anderson, due to the fact that his then current YouTube channel was called IBA Chandler. It didn't take long for Chris to get completely fed up with Liquid's shenanigans. To decide once and for all who the imposter was, he devised a scheme challenging Liquid to a musical competition, which he dubbed the Sing Star Challenge. The rules to this contest were odd and convoluted, and seemed specifically tailored to benefit Chris. It would consist of 5 rounds, and in each one both contestants would choose a new song to sing. As a finale, they would each choose a song for their competitor. In addition, they were not allowed to use instruments, but were required to have an MP3 of the song playing in the background. Finally, the contest was to have 6 judges, with both Chris and Liquid selecting 3. Christian chose his friend Kim Wilson, one of her male friends who remained unnamed, and a new online gal pal named Kate Bay. Liquid selected his girlfriend Casey, his friend Seth, and an animator by the name of SpazKid. Chris decided to end this video by asserting his dominance over Liquid. He took a razor and, without the use of shaving cream, aggressively shaved the goatee he had been growing for the past few weeks. With the gauntlet thrown, the Sing Star Challenge was officially on. To put it simply, the competition was heated, and lasted throughout the first week of August. Chris, of course, tried whatever tactic he could think of to hinder Liquid's chances of success. In the second round, Liquid chose to sing the theme song from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Christian angrily took to the video's comments to accuse him of cheating, since he claimed that theme songs were not allowed by the rules. Even though Chris himself had decided the rules specifically to benefit him, it seemed as though he was willing to bend them any way he saw fit. Nevertheless, the judges did not agree with his objection. The challenge proceeded normally for the next few days until the 5th and final round. As previously established, this was when Chris would choose a song for Liquid to sing and vice versa. It was without a doubt the most hotly contested round of the entire SingStar saga, beginning with Chris performing the tune Liquid chose for him, Smell Yo Dick by Risque. However, he opted to change the titular lyric to duck due to his discomfort with the phallic implication. Liquid was quick to call him out on this, forcing Chris to post a new version in which he sang the uncensored lines even though he clearly didn't want to. As for Liquid, Chris chose for him to perform Lift Up Your Eyes by the Planet Shakers. However, he did not sing the entire song, as the full version was almost 10 minutes in length. This provoked a furious response from Christian, who demanded that Liquid redo his entry with the full version or be disqualified. Chris also claimed that he had gotten the police involved to investigate Liquid, but walked back the claim almost instantly. The Autistic Man's imposter soon uploaded his new video with the complete song, and the SingStar challenge was officially complete. All that was left was for the judges to cast their votes. In the end, Liquid Chris was declared the winner after 4 of the 6 judges selected him. The deciding vote came from Kate Bay, Solid Chris's newest online gal pal. He begged her over email to change her mind, but she wouldn't budge. According to his own rules, this officially made Liquid Chris the true and honest Christian Weston Chandler. Of course, Ian Brandon Anderson did not take this defeat laying down. Despite losing fair and square, he quickly uploaded another video to prove that he was the one and only Chris Chan. To accomplish this, he publicly stated his address and phone number, inviting anybody to come over to his house and meet him. Unlike most other times when personal information about Mr. Chandler was revealed, this was not done through leaks or manipulation. Chris was simply so irate at the idea of anybody believing that he was not the real Christian Chandler that he willingly doxed himself. Meanwhile, after achieving victory in the SingStar Challenge, Liquid Chris posted an update video about his life. He thanked the judges for voting for him and stated that he had recently proposed to his sweetheart Casey. On top of this, he also claimed to have gotten a job at a video game studio in Redmond, Washington. This was most likely a reference to the Miyamoto saga from earlier. He concluded that, due to his new career move, he would officially be leaving the internet to focus on his new life. Liquid walked off camera as the song "We'll Meet Again" played ominously in the background, seemingly indicating that his saga was not quite finished just yet. Over the course of the SingStar Challenge, Solid Chris came in contact with Liquid's sweetheart Casey. They began talking semi-frequently over the phone and email, and she even joined him on one of his days out with Kim Wilson in real life. As they got to know each other better, it was clear that Chris's feelings for his new gal pal became more than just platonic friendship. Casey was quick to leverage this affection, learning even more details about the Chandlers' private life. During their many phone calls, Chris was more than happy to talk to Casey about his daily habits. According to him, he had been taking medication for high cholesterol due to the fact that pretty much all of his meals came in the form of fast food. When Casey reacted in shock, Chris was quick to clarify he often ordered salads from these establishments. Apparently, the reason for this constant eating out was due to the already established clutter in the Chandler kitchen, which made it impossible for any cooking to be done. When questioned about his physical activity, Chris stated his only exercise came from his daily walks around the neighborhood, which were enough for him to work up a sweat. Solid Chris didn't seem to see a problem with his lifestyle, but Casey became determined to get him to eat better and exercise more. She offered to take Chris jogging, an idea which he was initially hesitant about since he was worried his chest would bounce around too much. However, once Casey suggested he could wear a sports bra, he rapidly warmed up to the idea. He quickly purchased a piece of the female apparel, sent Casey a photo of himself wearing it, and commented on how confident it made him feel. Casey also encouraged Chris to get out of the house more. He began attending what he described as a relationship development class, which he hoped would help build up his confidence about talking to women in person. He compared it to his idea of dating education class, a concept he had been trying to get schools to implement for years alongside sex ed. Chris also applied for a job at Target. Going through with this took a lot more convincing from Casey than she first thought, as Chris was concerned that getting a job would impact his monthly social security checks. He never received a call back, but it cannot be overstated how much of a big step it was for Chris to apply in the first place, considering he had been arrested at Target only a few years prior. In October, after months away from the internet, Liquid Chris returned with a new video. He claimed that he had not made it to his job in Redmond, Washington, as while riding the bus there, he had been drugged and kidnapped by Solid Chris. He then stated that he woke up in the Sahara Desert with blood oozing from his anus. Chris was quick to deny the story.
I mean, come on, his story. I mean, like, being put in a meat factory, Sahara Desert, Aladdin people? Huh. And also, he could easily taken the drugs himself.
Upon his return, Liquid immediately reignited the feud, claiming that Casey had begun to fall in love with Solid Chris during his time away. But as soon as Liquid returned, she immediately fell back in love with the winner of the contest. This worked incredibly well in riling up the potential Target employee. He soon publicly stated his love for Casey, and the battle for her affection was on. Like their previous battle, this was really nothing more than the two of them making videos back and forth. On October 29th, Christian uploaded a diss track against Liquid, sung over the song Walk This Way. By the end, it simply devolved into Chris flipping through his playlist and using each new song to insult Liquid. It was here that Chris claimed Casey was now dating him, which was not true at all. Liquid was quick to respond with his own diss track, rapping to the beat of Eminem's My Name Is. As Solid vs. Liquid round 2 progressed, Casey and the Miscreants devised a way to up the ante, when on November 4th she called Chris and said she wanted him to meet her parents. This was when Casey handed her phone off to a fellow prankster posing as her father, Matthew. It was almost immediately apparent that the point of this chat was to make Christian as uncomfortable as possible. Every time he revealed a new detail about his life, Matthew would grill him on it and express his disapproval. After enduring this for nearly an hour, Chris told Matthew that he had crossed a line. This did not go over well, and the call ended with both Casey and her father being upset. The saga came to a head on November 10th when Chris and Casey had their final phone call. Christian remained largely silent as she grilled him about his behavior towards her father, and how he had seemed to take no significant steps in improving his lifestyle. She informed Chris that she and Liquid would be getting married soon, and that she no longer wanted to be his friend. Later that day, Chris posted a tear-filled video giving Casey and Liquid his blessing.
Congratulations on your wedding. I wish you and Chris all happiness in the world.
The supposed reason for Chris Chan making this video was to share the other things he wanted to tell Casey before she hung up on him. It seemed like this ordeal had once again left Chris emotionally destroyed. But as Casey even predicted, it wouldn't be long until he had forgotten about all of this and moved on to his next big saga.
Captain's Log, Stardate, November 12th, 2009. It's now time for fan mail. Well, not much fan mail, as it is a little something from the Virginia Library of Congress.
Only a couple days after Liquid Chris had ended his storyline, our protagonist uploaded a new video in which his moods seemed to have done a complete 180. Christian happily displayed a letter showing he had officially registered the name Sonic Chew with the Virginia Library of Congress. From the very beginning, people had mocked the idea of Sonic Chew, saying there was no way Chris would be allowed to make money off of the characters without being sued by both Nintendo and Sega. Chris had always refuted this though, saying that Sonic Chew was different enough from the pre-existing properties that it could stand on its own. He seemed to believe that this registration completely validated him, but it's important to note that it was far from a copyright. On November 23rd, Chris noticed some new advertisements that were being showcased on Wikipedia. One depicted Peter Griffin from Family Guy supporting gay rights, and the other showed a Pickle Man mascot promoting a contest for a free trip to Mexico. Chris was irate that these messages were being displayed on his website, and emailed the system's operator, COGSDev, to get them taken down. In response, the admin told him that there was nothing to be done, as the ad space had been purchased legally by Chris's old enemy, Jack Thaddeus. This opened a brand new door for trolls, as they found yet another way to drive their target insane. Shortly thereafter, Chris uploaded a video asking his fans for donations in order to remove the ads. Strangely, he chose to single out his European fans, as it seemed he had recently developed a fascination with Europe and its currency. He also expressed his interest in finding official sponsors for the website, with his eyes set on Coca-Cola. As the months continued, Chris's fury at these gay pride ads only grew stronger. In one video, he even claimed that he taped pieces of paper to his computer screen so he didn't have to see them whenever he logged on to the site. By the end of the year, he had reached his limits, editing Wikipedia himself, removing Jack's ads, and replacing them with fake advertisements for Coke and the James Cameron film Avatar. These were quickly taken down, and Chris was informed by COGSDev that they had received a cease and desist order from Coca-Cola, although this was most likely a lie. After this incident, Chris's administrative privileges were revoked. Also around this general time period, Chris began doing a daily mailbag on the Wikipedia. Basically, this was his opportunity to respond to fan emails, speaking with them directly and answering their questions. He would usually give short responses, rarely more than a single sentence, and many wondered if he actually cared at all about it or if it was just simply something COGSDev talked him into. The most interesting bit of information from these, though, was the revelation that Christian had a bizarre and irrational hatred of people with Asperger's syndrome. He seemed to believe that their struggles were nothing compared to those of people with autism, and he despised the fact that the two were often lumped together. This is when an artist by the name of Alec Benson Leary created a comic called Asperchew, taking advantage not only of Chris's hatred of Asperger's, but also his insistence that he own the copyright to Sonicchew. This comic was clearly a parody of Chris in his life, with the Asperchew character even looking like Christian. These illustrations in the publication also included a human character that too had an uncanny resemblance to Chris Chan, named Ian Brandon Anderson. Upon discovering Asperchew, Chris became enraged. Alec began emailing him apologetically, trying to smooth things out between the two of them. In these emails, Alec included art of Asperchew and Sonicchew together, which only angered Chris further, as he believed they were trying to portray the two as being in a homosexual relationship.
You have done wrong with this drawing. It only depicts the opposite of straight, you DA. There may be a human character coming into the books with Asperger's, but there will certainly never be a Sonicchew or Roastchew with that ailment.
Later in December, Chris received an email from a young man named Evan claiming that Chris had stolen his character and used it in his comic without permission. Evan was actually the first person to ever send Chris Sonicchew fan art all the way back in 2008. Among these drawings was one of Evan's original Sonicchew character, a hedgehog with drills for hands named Simon Chew. A short time later, Chris had introduced his own character with drills for hands named Simon Law. The resemblance between the two was undeniable, and it was obvious to any passive observer that Chris had ripped off Evan. Because of this, he requested that Chris kill off his Simon Law character, but he vehemently refused, calling Evan a monster for even suggesting such a thing. While he scoffed off Evan's demand for now, this would not be the end of the feud. At the start of 2010, the ad space on the Wikipedia, once belonging to Jack Thaddeus, was purchased by a new advertiser. This would normally be a relief for Chris, that is, if it wasn't for the person who had taken over the sponsorship, Alec Benson Leary, who quickly co-opted Chris's website to advertise Asperchew comics, as well as his new website, Asperpedia. This spurned Chris to create a video in which he raged against these advertisements. He accused Alec of being nothing more than a plagiarist and called Asperchew a dirty parody of Sonic Chew. This was a strange choice of words for Chris, as in the past he had defended Sonic Chew's existence with the very same parody reasoning. As always, Chris emailed CogsDev to try to get these new ads taken down to no avail. No matter how much he pleaded, she would not budge, claiming that Alec had paid for the ad space all the way through the year, and that Chris would just have to live with it. This only served to anger him further, as he made another video a few days later threatening to ruin Alec before punching the camera.
I'm gonna ruin you, Larry. So angry.
The longer Alec's ads stayed up on the Wikipedia, the angrier Chris became. On January 15th, he posted another video directed at not just Alec, but a few of his friends as well. These included Asperpedia's webmaster Mao Ling, Sean August Watley, a frequent Asperpedia contributor, and Evan. Together, these men would later be known as the Asperpedia 4. The upload concludes with Chris challenging all of them to a fight to decide once and for all who was superior. He even read out his home address yet again so they could come face him directly. As January continued, Chris posted more and more uploads about his hatred for Alec and the Asperpedia 4. In fact, mere hours later, he made a rant in which he spoke a Spanish phrase backwards that he believed translated to "love Sonic Chew and hate Asperchew." Confused, trolls were able to trace this back to an episode of The Simpsons, where a similar backwards speaking tactic is used to try to brainwash people to join the Navy. On the 17th, Chris uploaded yet another video about his feelings toward Alec. In this one, he reviewed the Asperchew comic, detailing every single thing he hated about it. Of course, the main thing he took offense to was how it depicted him, specifically citing the fact that Asperchew had a quote-unquote Buddha belly. He went on to criticize its anti-religious themes, as well as the excessive violence and nudity. To that last point, Chris did address the fact that Sonic Chew had seen its fair share of nudity as well. However, he had defended it by stating it had all been censored, seemingly ignoring the fact that he had originally posted it all uncensored. The irate man concluded this video by claiming he would be getting the FBI involved in the case, and telling Alec that the spirit of his dog Patty would haunt his nightmares and eat his soul. After this, Chris and Alec finally began communicating with each other directly over the phone. Their first conversation began on the subject of the promotions placed on the Wikipedia. Surprisingly, Chris seemed ready to compromise on this matter, saying he wouldn't mind so much if the ads were regulated only to the site's sidebars. In addition, he also said that he should be able to run his own ads on Asperpedia just to make things fair. To both of these points, Alex seemed to be willing to cooperate, although it appears nothing much came of it. These discussions next moved on to the subject of Alex's use of Sonic Chew characters in his comic. Chris demanded he stop, or at least change their names, but Alex stood his ground. For some reason, the topic was shifted to Alec and Chris pointing out the various lore differences between the two universes, such as the fact that in his world, Sonic Chew was a Pokemon, while in Alec's, he was just a species of animal. This led the troll to his next argument. If Chris insisted that Sonic Chew was a Pokemon, how could he then claim to own the full copyright to him? Chris obviously had no answer to this question, as he uncomfortably tried to shift the topic back to the original subject of the ads, but Alec continued pressing, and eventually Chris made up a lie about his cell phone running out of battery, ending the discussion. Their next call would take place around a week later. Chris expressed his displeasure with the name Asperchew on the grounds that it was mean towards the character. He seemed to be arguing from the perspective that Asperchew had the same feelings as a real person, citing the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit to bolster his point. When Alec tried to make Chris see that there was a difference between the thoughts and feelings of real people and fictional characters, Chris simply called him naive. Realizing that this conversation was going nowhere, Alec shifted the topic to Chris's continued use of Simon Law in his comic despite Evan's objections. Chris dug his heels in, insisting that Simon Law had not been inspired in any way by Simon Chu. Alec pointed out by Chris's own logic that there was a possibility Asper Chu was not based on Sonic Chu. On top of that, he also read off of Chris's official Wikipedia page about Simon Law, where he directly credited Simon Chu as being the basis for the character. Chris was once again backed into a corner, and he was forced to say he would consider writing Simon Law out of his comic. As these regular phone calls continued, Alec began asking Chris to publicly apologize for the things he had said about the Asperpedia 4. He eventually relented to this point, but Alec was not happy with the apology he made, as he spent most of the video expressing his continued frustration with the ads on the website. It seemed to him that Chris Chan was not actually sincerely sorry, and was only apologizing in the hopes that it would make Alec remove his advertisements. The second apology was equally poor. He was at least able to name the things he was sorry for, specifically the threats he made against Alec and his theft of Evan's Simon Chu character. He carefully worded it as to not technically give up the rights to Simon Law, only Simon Chu. As if this weren't enough, just a few hours earlier, Chris had made a video cursing and threatening Mao over new pro-gay ads that were appearing on the Wikipedia. Eventually, Alex stopped asking Chris for more apology videos, as it became increasingly clear that he would never learn his lesson. The way the man spoke to Chris was like a parent disciplining a child. Unlike many of the other trolls who just wanted to see a reaction, it seemed like Alec had a genuine desire to make Chris see the error of his ways. But as you would soon discover, this strategy didn't work. February 25th, 2010 was a big day in Chris Chan history, as it marked the publication of Sonic Chu number 10, which would prove to be one of the most bombastic comics he had ever made, because it attempted to exact revenge on practically every troll who had ever wronged him over the past year. The story opens with Chris being released from the time void he had been trapped in several issues prior. He detailed what had transpired while he was away, how he had traveled to the future and met his wife, a woman named Lovely Weather. She was a scientist working on a vaccine for homosexuality, which she was finally able to complete using a sample of Chris's pure straight blood. Chris then traveled back to the present and used the vaccine on his nemesis Natesurk, turning him heterosexual again and as a result redeeming his character. Later in the issue, Chris stated that he meant no offense to his homosexual fans, and that he only included this plot point in order to convince his trolls that he wasn't gay. It didn't work. Next, he grabbed his trusty Guitar Hero controller, which transformed him from a drawing to a photograph of himself. Chris and his band, the Hedgehog Boys, played his original song, Revive Zordon, a Power Rangers parody of Cat Scratch Fever by Ted Nugent. The tune was played so loud that it caused the 4-cent garbage building to crumble. As everything collapsed around them, Clyde Cash and Jack Thaddeus grabbed one another by the hand and fell to their deaths. In Chris's mind, this was meant to humiliate them, implying that they were gay just before killing them off. To his dismay though, most readers thought this came off as a surprisingly touching and tragic end to the two characters. Once the tower came down, Chris lamented the fact that the trolls forced him to do such a thing, and added the detail that there were 1,500 people inside the 4-cent garbage headquarters when it was destroyed. The final part of the story came when Chris traveled to the home of Alec Benson Leary and wiped all of the contents of Asperpedia from the internet. Despite the fact that this issue was all about him getting back at the trolls, he did use this section to somewhat honor the wishes of Alec and Evan by killing off Simon Law. Yet he did this in his own spiteful way, depicting Evan as the one to kill her by planting an exploding Pokemon in her bathroom. Following the lengthy courtroom scene, the entire Asperpedia 4 were found guilty of Simon Law's murder and sentenced to death. Each of them received a different grisly fate. Alec was put in an electric chair, with 10 of Chris's characters simultaneously pushing the button to end his life. Evan was chained to a wall and sliced to pieces by Simon Law's husband and her recently born daughter, Sandy. Sean was also chained to a wall and shot multiple times, leaving his body bloody and riddled with bullets. Finally, Chris personally used his psychic powers to mutilate and butcher Mao. Upon reading this, Alec called the comic book creator once again, this time to talk about his shock at how he and his friends were depicted in Sonic Chew 10. He asked Chris if he understood the hypocrisy of showing such gratuitous violence in his comic, when he had previously criticized Asperchew for the same thing. But Chris defended himself by saying he had only done it because of how angry he was that they made him kill Simon Law. To that point, Alec mentioned that Chris had effectively broken his end of the agreement by introducing the character of Sandy, who was basically just a new version of Evan's creation. Chris, of course, disagreed, and this arguing ultimately went nowhere. This would be their final phone call.
Are you positive you really understand how I feel about you, Mr. Hans Asperger? Yeah. Yeah? Baka! I feel dislike towards you for selfishly putting your ill name in association with autism.
At the same time he was dealing with the Asperpedia 4, Chris had also begun attending a young adult social club in hopes of meeting new people, and drumming up more interest in Sonic Chew. It was here that he met a young woman who he referred to as the Wallflower in order to respect her wishes of remaining anonymous on the internet. The two of them seemed to hit it off quite well at first, although she was quick to inform Christian that she was not looking for a relationship, and only wanted to be friends. Chris, being Chris, however, still thought it would be a good idea to escalate things. The now 28-year-old man and the Wallflower emailed back and forth frequently over the coming months, and eventually decided to start collaborating on a fantasy story together. During this correspondence, Chris continued to try to get closer with her. This only served to make the young woman more uncomfortable though, as she requested Chris limit the visits he had apparently been making to her home.
I don't want to sound mean or anything, but I would like some space between visits. I like you and you're nice, but I only just met you. I am in no mood for an actual relationship. And during the once a month thing, I want to visit with the other young adults too.
On March 9th, Chris posted a custom level he had been making on the game Little Big Planet titled The Guardians of the Owl Kingdom. This was meant as an adaptation of the fantasy story he had begun writing with the Wallflower. In the level's description, Christian referred to his co-writer by her online name, Damien Antaria. The trolls were quickly able to use this information to track down the Wallflower's true identity, and decided to email her a link to the quickie. To put it mildly, she was horrified that her private information had been discovered, and was even more disturbed by the things she read on the site. She emailed Chris furious about the entire situation, demanding he find some way to remove all the info about her from the internet. Chris tried to explain, blaming the trolls for all his problems, and concluded his email by saying he loved her, which seemed to be the last straw.
I don't love you and I hate you for this. Everything was fine until I met you. I don't know why I took up Mom's offer to go to the social club. I had enough friends here at home and on the internet.
As Chris was reeling from yet another loss of a gal pal, he received an email from a troll calling himself Surfshack Tito, claiming to be the one who sent the Wallflower the link to the quickie. He differentiated himself from the other trolls by taking on the persona of a pre-established character from the cartoon Rocket Power, often ending his emails with the same words of wisdom given by his fictional counterpart on the show. Chris decided to email the Wallflower in order to warn her about this new Nickelodeon-themed troll, but she still wanted nothing to do with him, telling Chris that she had a boyfriend now, although this was most likely a lie, so he'd leave her alone. For some reason, Chris assumed that her new boyfriend was Tito, going so far as to post a video threatening him in the hopes of getting the Wallflower back. Despite her wishes to remain anonymous, Chris accidentally said the Wallflower's real name twice in this upload. This upload is also memorable because Chris decided to wear a kilt and blast Celtic music in the background while threatening his new foe. This was because of the Wallflowers' love of the band Celtic Woman. Later that day, he uploaded another video directed at the poor young girl, begging her not to leave him. He started by expressing his confusion over the fact that she had a new boyfriend even though she had told him multiple times that she was not interested in a relationship. He then sang a cover of Avril Lavigne's hit song Girlfriend, except he changed the lyrics to I don't like your boyfriend. Chris continued his attack on Surfshack Tito over the following days. He sent him many threatening emails, including a photograph of himself flipping off his enemy. On March 17th, this hit a boiling point when Chris uploaded one more video directed at his nemesis.
And if you go near her again, and I will find you. I will find you. I will cut you up. I will beat you up. I'll knock you on your backside, stand on your gut like a log roller, and roll your fat right through your skull. Rolling it wide open. Because that's what you deserve, you goddamn womanizing, raping, trolling, stupid, pickle-suited n***er.
This video horrified the current owner of the Wikipedia ad space, who as a result decided to give it back to the Asperpedia 4. Somehow, in the transition though, Alec and his friends got editing access to the Wikipedia. With a short opening to wreak havoc before being booted, they quickly began answering all the mailbag emails on the wiki, and made a blog post pretending to be Chris coming out of the closet. They then opened editing to the public, which caused the site to be ruined beyond repair. Shortly after, Wikipedia was locked down completely. On March 21st, Chris posted a video reflecting on the events of the past few days. He blamed Tito for everything, taking no personal responsibility for his behavior, including saying the N-word. He also referred to the Wallflower yet again as his girlfriend, showing that he still did not understand she never had any romantic interest regarding him. The video concludes with him stating that he had let the trolls ruin too much of his life, and would be leaving the internet permanently. For nearly 2 years at this point, Chris had been the target of non-stop trolling. The miscreants really had turned the man's world into a cartoon. There was a seemingly never-ending parade of villains, each with their own quirks and gimmicks, most of the time having the goal to make Chris's life a living hell. Some did seem to make a genuine effort to snap him out of this delusion, but by that point it was too late. Even after Chris's recorded farewell, the ever-growing audience watching these shenanigans unfold knew it wasn't a question of if he would come back, but when. And as they all had a good chuckle at the most recent misadventures of this troubled autistic comic creator, little did they realize that eventually Chris Chan's life would be ruined beyond repair, leading even the most ardent of his trolls to wonder if they had finally gone too far.
Do you like Indian food? Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah,
All right.
India. I could go for Indian or Chinese.
Taste of India. This is one of my favorite places.
Oh, Taste of India. It smells good in here.
I mean, I'll ask.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty empty.
Oh boy, I'm gonna. Okay, now I just feel like I have to do this. First time in here, I feel like I gotta do this. Hello, my name is Apu. I went to.
No. Don't do. No. You don't have to do that. That's all right.
Welcome to Quickie Mart.
Hello. Hey.
First time coming here. This is a lovely place. I'm surprised. I mean, I walked the mall many times and didn't think of coming in here. Feels really good. Smells good.
So you like Indian food?
I'm open. I keep an open mind for all kinds of food. So, I mean, if there's something I don't like, then, well, at least I tried it once. And I'd definitely be open-minded for trying some haggis if I ever go visit Scotland or something.
What is haggis?
Sheep guts.
Oh.
I never realized this, but oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me? With the banjo on my knee. Twang, 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 twang.
Oh, excuse me. Is it possible that we can get a picture? You're the owner of Sonic Shoe, right?
Yes!
Yeah! Can we get a picture?
Yes.
Do you want me to take it for you guys?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much. I couldn't believe it. I saw you and I was like...
That's awesome.
Yes, hello.
Thank you so much. It was great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Take care. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's very humbling.
Yeah, I've never.
So you don't get people coming up to you too often?
I'd say on average, probably like once or twice a month.
Okay.
But it's very humbling and good when it happens.
That happens.
Yeah, but anyway, that was one side of the park with the statue. It would come up on the other side of the park and on the side of the street where the library is at. Right there.
Right.
And I want to get into the love.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is good. Set her in.
Yeah.
Set her in and I'll do my thing.
All right.
That's all, folks.
I never said it was the victim! I never f***ing once said it was the victim! And I'm sick and tired of being called a f***ing rapist! I'm tired of it all!
I'm sure many of you have already seen the now infamous freakout of Basherverse. While it's hard to deny on a surface level how much of a spectacle it is to see a man fall apart on camera even half a decade later, most don't have much more than a surface level understanding of what caused that explosion, and the bizarre events that followed. This is a story of betrayal, exploitation, lies, sexual harassment, doxing, hackers, and death threats, with the man in the center of it all who was completely unequipped emotionally to handle the pressure. Even all these years later, it's hard to understand the context of that video, but after hundreds of hours of research, today I will try my best. This is the Basherverse conspiracy.
Wow, what a great day to be picking flowers! Oh, speaking of, you're mine, little buddy. Let's see if we can't find any of your family members. Oh man, I just can't get enough picking flowers. They said that I'd be a great flower picker when I grew up.
The year is 2015, an era in which easily excited Minecraft Let's Players reign supreme on YouTube, while drama channels begin to make their way to the center of the internet landscape. Among the rising stars of the Minecrafter genre was a man by the name of Brandon Asher, or as he was known by his fans, Basherverse. A lover of video games from a young age, Brandon found success online with a series titled The Legend of Hobo. This was a scripted show that took place entirely in Minecraft, making it very popular with kids and quickly racking up millions of views. This caught the eye of other famous Minecraft YouTubers at the time, such as Sky Does Minecraft and Captain Sparkles, who wanted to play with him. In the blink of an eye, he went from a random guy playing games in his room to hanging out with some of the most popular stars on the World Wide Web. As if things couldn't get any better for Brandon, he also met a fan on his Twitter by the name of Clara Swan, known online as Clara Babylegs. The two quickly hit it off and began dating, with Basher even flying Clara out from her state of Tennessee to live with him in his Seattle home, as it became clear this relationship had become more than just a passing fling. Whether intentional or not, these two were quickly becoming a power couple in the online world, as her follower numbers began to grow. With their continued success, Brandon and Clara moved to California to join a YouTube house called BAM Lounge, a collaborative project involving several creators such as Bertgasm, Aviator Gaming, and Jobless Garrett, living in one big house making comedy videos. The type of content on this channel usually ranged from pranks, vlogs, and sketches, with the personalities involved becoming so popular that they were even in talks behind the scenes about starting a full-fledged BAM Lounge reality show on traditional television. With a loving girlfriend, supportive roommates, successful business associates, and a growing fan base, Basher was on the top of the world, and it seemed like nothing could bring him down. Unfortunately, a storm was on the horizon, the likes of which had never been seen in the history of YouTube. Daniel Keem, otherwise known as DJ Killer Keemstar, has always been a polarizing figure on YouTube, racking up a total of 5 channels that have been terminated over his time on the site. He rose to prominence trolling players on Xbox Live in the mid-2000s, before finally settling down with his show Drama Alert, where he reports on various mistakes, feuds, or mere interactions of internet celebrities. Keem has certainly made his fair share of enemies over the years due to his abrasive personality, yet that's why people tune in. Back in 2015, he could be particularly ruthless, and when he received an anonymous tip about Brandon Asher, his sights became laser focused on the growing Let's Player. This all began when the Drama Alert team received a message from an anonymous source, accusing Basher of committing some heinous crimes in the early 2000s that came up during a background check done on Brandon when he joined the BAM Lounge. Jumping on the rumor, Keem quickly reached out to Brandon for comment. He denied everything, which stopped the allegations from going public at first, but after it became clear that these claims weren't going anywhere, he decided to make a video of his own to get out in front of the story. As his story goes, Brandon was born to an absent father and emotionally abusive mother who didn't have much of an interest in raising him, leaving Brandon home alone many times when he was just still a baby. He claimed not to remember much of his abuse though, because at a very young age a foster couple gained custody. After that, the quality of his life picked up significantly as he was now being raised in a loving and caring environment. The fondness with which he told these stories about his adoptive parents made his childhood seem pretty ideal. The trouble started when he entered high school. Brandon stated that throughout elementary and middle school, he was a fairly average student, passing by with a decent enough grade. But in high school, he suddenly lost all motivation to keep trying. His grades began to plummet, and as a result, he was placed in what he called an educational development center.
This is a school that the undesirables got pushed to. People they didn't want in the school, and they just sit us in there and make us do crossword puzzles all day. This is high school.
Brandon also claimed to have been a constant target of bullying from his fellow students. All this changed though when he met a girl when he was 17, and quickly fell head over heels in love with her. After being alone for so long, it's clear that finding happiness with a woman meant a great deal to him emotionally. It's no wonder then that he was absolutely crushed when he learned that she had cheated on him.
My whole world got turned upside down. It was literally the worst thing I've ever experienced up to that point.
Around this point, he also began talking to the younger sister of one of his friends, who he claims was around 14 years old at the time. He claimed that she served as a shoulder to cry on.
She actually talked to me a lot about it and consoled me. We started talking online and we had feelings for each other, and her parents had started kind of getting like the vibe that we had a thing going on. We would get pretty intimate. But one day when I woke up, there was a knock on my door, and there was a guy, and he introduced himself as a private investigator. They ended up arresting me, and they put me in jail.
When he finally had his day in court, he was charged with a Class A misdemeanor for an unlawful transaction with a minor. As punishment, he would attend court-mandated therapy and would be stripped of all his computers.
And my lawyer was like, "You are so freaking lucky because you could have gone to prison and stuff like that." I'm like, for that? What the? Why? Like, it's insane how apparently lucky I was that they didn't just send me to prison.
Perhaps out of some feeling of shame or embarrassment, Brandon and his family ended up moving to a different state after the sentencing.
And for years and years and years, I just sat there doing nothing but wasting away, and I felt like I was going crazy. I'd wake up, I'd go into my computer room, I'd sit down, I'd load up Star Wars Galaxies or World of Warcraft, and I'd just play until I felt like I was going to pass out.
At a certain point, Basher decided to pick himself up and try to branch out with his life, which is when he began making his Legend of Hobo videos and his career began taking off. Brandon ended his video talking about how he feared the rumors around the story would ruin his career and he wanted to tell his truth to the world. His fans all rallied behind him after this, supporting him due to the apparent rawness of his confession. But not everyone was so swayed by his tale. A few hours after Basher posted this video, Keemstar uploaded a response titled, "Opinion on the Basher Situation." Keem expressed his frustration with the amount of support Brandon was receiving for his confession, feeling that the video came across as very manipulative. He cited Basher's constant shaking and crying throughout the story, as well as recounting his whole tragic life story as his reason for it coming across as insincere. Keem's biggest gripe was that the video seemed to be spinning a narrative that Basher was a victim, whereas he thought it would have been better if he made a simple, flat-out apology. Keem, along with thousands of others, believed that Brandon wasn't being 100% truthful about the details throughout his confession either. In his statements, there were some glaring contradictions, such as why in the original rumor he was said to have raped a 13-year-old girl twice, but in this story the girl was around 14 or 15, and they merely talked in a sexual manner on the computer. On top of that, Basher released an article from his local newspaper which listed him as 20 years of age when he was sentenced, which didn't make sense when compared to his earlier statement that he was 18 at the time. To make matters even more confusing, online records show that he was arrested at 19. Keemstar stated that his biggest concern in all of this was the average age of Basher's fanbase. Due to his popularity in the Minecraft sphere, his fans tended to be either children or preteens. Keem felt that Brandon, given his alleged history, may try to leverage his young audience into potentially dangerous situations. At this point, Keem also brought up the eyebrow-raising point that Basher's girlfriend Clara was only 17 years of age at the time they met, whereas he was in his late 20s. Had he not learned anything from talking to underage girls, many wondered? At this point, when anyone would question his official story not adding up or joked about the rumors, Basher's oversensitivity was made clear as he would often have breakdowns at the slightest mention of his name in a negative light. Keemstar noted this and would seemingly prod Brandon for a response on both Twitter and Drama Alert. During his annual April Fool's video, Keem made a joke at Basher's expense, in which he photoshopped a fake tweet to make it look like he was confessing to the allegations. Brandon did not take this very well, going on an angry rant about it on Twitter and reaching out to his network Machinima to try to get the video taken down. On another occasion, Basher posted a tweet about how he was going to Disney World soon, to which Keem responded by warning parents to keep their kids away from the park. Basher again did not find this very comical, going as far as to publicly ask the police to get involved and arrest Keemstar. Keem made sure to mention that he was not the only target, as Brandon had reportedly threatened a lawsuit against any YouTuber who had previously known and talked about the rumor, such as his once good friend Sky Does Minecraft. During this time, Basher's mother had become the target of a severe amount of harassment, receiving constant texts and phone calls about the crimes her son was accused of. Tracing back the origin of how this all started, Basher accused Keem of sending a tweet with her phone number. There was a screenshot allegedly proving that Keem retweeted the docs, but Keem claims that it is a fake and denies it ever happening. All these events were only samplings, though, of the now notorious freakout that was soon to come. The day after the Drama Alert video came out questioning Brandon's official narrative, a dogpiling of hate started to be sent his way. The once sympathetic comments quickly turned vitriolic as the math wasn't adding up on his explanations. This is when a once contained controversy in the Minecraft sphere went viral. Instead of explaining the contradicting information to help people better understand the situation, Basher posted another video of his own, simply titled Goodbye. In this video, it's clear that he has reached the end of his rope both mentally and emotionally.
I hate you all who are attacking me constantly. I just wanted to make a fucking YouTube channel. I just wanted that. I just wanted that so bad. I just wanted to make people happy and shit. I just wanted to leave. I just wanted to leave my room that I was in for years, and it finally did, and you won't leave me alone! Ah! I'm tired of it! I'm tired of it! So I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.
Shortly after uploading, he removed the video and clarified on Twitter that he wouldn't actually be quitting the internet, but at that point the damage was already done. Some were sympathetic with Basher's plight, but many more now saw him as the freakout guy, with re-uploads of this video gaining millions upon millions of views from across the world. Among those whose attention was caught by this video was none other than Keemstar himself, whose initial reaction to it was recorded on a live stream. From many angles, this can be seen as the true beginning of the feud between Basherverse and Keem.
Entertain people! I just wanted that! I just wanted that so bad! I just wanted to make people happy and I just wanted to leave!
Dude, like, okay, like, people might say that I pushed him too far, but I didn't. I didn't. He's just, this is more playing the victim. This is more like manipulation. That's all I see is manipulation. Like, all I wanted, and all I think anybody wanted, was this dude to just own up to what happened and move on.
The very next day, Keem posted another video directed at Basher, reaching out to him and asking for an interview with all proceeds going to charity. To our knowledge, this request seems to have either been ignored or denied by Basher. But because the story was so big, that didn't stop Drama Alert from reaching out to people around him. On April 10th, Keem interviewed another YouTuber in the Minecraft space by the name of Ashley.
And when you and Basher were having this conversation, which we're about to get into, ladies and gentlemen, get your popcorn ready. How old were you at the time?
I was 17.
How old was Basher?
28.
28-year-old man, 17-year-old child. Guys, but right here, Basher says, yes, you are. I get turned on every time I see you. You're sexy as hell. Now, what is he talking about?
According to her, he also allegedly screenshotted every single selfie she posted to her Snapchat story, and sent her messages complimenting her appearance in them. Ashley provided screenshots of the chat logs, but the names were blacked out so we can't say for certain if this was Basher. This was only the beginning of the new allegations though. At the same time, another YouTuber by the name of True Wind Waker uploaded a video on her own channel in which she made a similar accusation towards Basher. A few months prior to this controversy, Brandon had posted a public link to his Snapchat on Twitter. Being a fan of his, she quickly added him and sent him a selfie. He then reportedly screenshotted it and asked for more, which she also provided evidence of. Later, Wind Waker liked a tweet from Basher, prompting him to follow her and immediately start messaging her on Twitter, asking if she was the same girl who had sent him the selfie. Just like with Ashley, Basher's messages quickly became flirtatious, and he asked her if she would be willing to move their conversations to Skype.
All. And then I don't have I respond, but I'm sure I responded something like, really? Like, because I was confused. And he said, do you have Skype? We can text better there. And then at that point, I was kind of like, I mean, yeah, I thought it was really cool because he had, I think he had 1 million subscribers then, and I really liked his videos. And I was like, whoa, this guy that I've been watching, like, I really appreciate his videos. He's funny, all this stuff, and he wants to talk to me. I was like, oh my gosh, like, whoa. And then he proceeded to start kind of like getting more sexual conversation went on, like including weird things. And I was just kind of like, I didn't say anything.
She tried on multiple occasions to steer the conversation away from inappropriate subjects, but he would quickly steer it right back. After a while, he asked her age, to which she told him that she was 16. In response, Basher reportedly lied and said that he was only 21. Unfortunately, she no longer had the Skype messages, but she provided enough evidence that it was clear to most that she had spoken with Basher in some capacity.
So he started dating Clara Babylegs when she was a minor. We know that to be 100% true. And then also, he was flirting with underage girls online, and we know this because those girls came forward, and I interviewed them on Drama Alert, and they had, screenshots in proof of Basher doing this.
As the situation heated up and more people came out with stories of their own, Basher knew he had to do something drastic to try to quell the flames. About a week or so later, Basher appeared on a Drama Alert video for an interview. Keem's tone immediately seemed to have made a complete 180, stating that his team had looked into the situation further and that he now believed Basher's story.
Basically, the Drama Alert team did more research into what happened with Basher 11 years ago, and we can now confirm that the ages were 18 and 15, not 20 and 13. I wanted to get Basher on here first to apologize. Drama Alert reports the truth, right? We've never reported that the victim was 13. All we've ever reported was that Sky Does Minecraft said the victim was 13. That the Zombie Unicorn said the victim was 13. And based on these people and their reputations, you know, my personal opinion was that you were lying. Now that we know that that's 100% truth, the first question I have for you is, how did this rumor start that the victim was 13?
Basher claimed that he had told the other YouTubers in the house his version of the story very early in his time with the group, but somewhere along the line someone had changed it to him raping a 13-year-old girl. As Basher told it, the story went that in the wake of the controversy, his fellow BAM Lounge members encouraged him to go back with his girlfriend Clara to his family home in Kentucky to sort things out mentally. Brandon claimed that his mother had some sort of job in the legal profession and would be able to help them out. But once the couple arrived there, the members of BAM Lounge began texting Clara privately.
Melting my heart was like being destroyed. I started bawling. I started just like, what? Why are you leaving me? Why? Like, why don't you stay longer? What is making you leave me? And she would not look me in the eyes. She didn't shed a single tear. It was the most pathetic thing I've ever done. My mom was even there. She can attest to it, but I know she won't because she, no offense, she doesn't like you.
so she leaves, goes with her uncle. All right.
Yeah.
And then she flies all the way back to Seattle?
No, she flew to LA
She
to
flew to-
be with the BAM guys again.
And she's still
That's
going to be
weird in
on the
itself.
project.
Yeah.
So your friends disown you, and then your girlfriend, who you love, and you thought that she loved you,
Oh God, I love her, dude.
disowns
You have no idea.
for her career.
In this version of events, Clara came across as almost sociopathic, emotionlessly dumping Basher as he cried and pleaded for her to stay. Team seemed determined to paint Clara as some sort of gold digger who was only using her boyfriend for views and money. But Basher was hesitant to agree as it was clear he still had feelings for her. Basher came across as the victim in this interview, a man who had lost everything over what he claimed to be a baseless rumor. Just like that, the focus was shifted away from him and onto his teenage girlfriend. In this interview, the subject of the girls who had come out to accuse him of flirting with them when they were underage was also addressed. Basher fully admitted to having spoken to them, but stated that he had since reached out and apologized and that he was now on good terms with both of them. However, he did claim that he had no idea that either of them were underage, which contradicted true Wind Waker's story that he knew she was 16. This discrepancy was not even mentioned in the interview. Nevertheless, Basher came away from it looking good in the eyes of most of the YouTube community, and he made a promise never to flirt with girls over the internet again. The next day, Clara responded to the accusations of being a gold digger in a video on her personal channel. Unfortunately, this video has been privated, which led me into a brand new rabbit hole of trying to find a re-upload of it. Using the Wayback Machine and a direct link to the video, I found out that the name of it was My Basherverse Story, which I then searched for. The only result I was getting when looking up the title was a 12-second video that spliced together 10 seconds of her confession with a 2-second clip of the D's Nuts guy. Without any other leads, I tried to reach out to the uploader as it was clear he had downloaded the video back in the day and possibly still had it saved on a hard drive or the cloud. But when I went on his Twitter, it was suspended. I then took his internet handle to see if he was active on any other websites. This is when I found out this dude is actually an international hacker on the run from both the Guatemalan and Mexican government for stealing and leaking thousands of files. So to put it simply, the only person with a copy of this video is currently evading law enforcement. Becoming frustrated as I spent more time trying to find this video, I next simply searched for things like Clara Baby Legs and Clara Basher on YouTube so I can scroll through every single result to see if it exists under a different name. After going through hundreds if not thousands of results, I finally find another copy of the video. When I click on the elusive confession, I notice that it's quiet, so I try raising the volume. But as it rises to max, the realization slowly hits me that while this is in fact the video in question, it has no sound, making it useless. Finally, after all this, I found an article from back in the day giving a summary of what she said, so we'll just have to rely on that transcript for information. Clara claimed that the coverage of the story thus far had been heavily weighted against her, and had left out a lot of important details. According to her, she had stuck by Basher's side in times when his popularity was dipping and money was tight. On top of that, she talked about the frequent depressive episodes Basher had when they were together, and how she talked him out of multiple suicide attempts. Eventually, his mental state simply became too much for her to handle. Clara said that she and Basher were fighting constantly, and she no longer felt safe around him. It was clear to her that the relationship was on its last leg, so when BAM Lounge offered her a way out, she took it. At this point, the BAM Creator House just so happened to be doxxed in a very public way.
Guy that leaked the giant, like,
Smile for
Keemstar
YouTube
interview.
Gaming?
Yeah, they were talking, Basher and that Smile for YouTube were talking a lot, and then all of a sudden, Clara is staying at our house because she feels unsafe to live with Basherverse. And then all of a sudden, our house address gets leaked on a giant website, and it was told that it was anonymous, and Keemstar tweeted it out. Keemstar said, I wonder if this is true or something like that. And it's a link to our house, and then not only that, and the only person that would know this is Basherverse, so I know Basherverse leaked it. Not only that, but there's pictures of each window, and in the window it gave a paragraph detail of who lived in there, how to get up there, and where do they stay at night.
This resulted in a Twitter confrontation between Brandon and Clara, which made it clear that his stance had not changed since his interview with Keemstar. He made sure to mention that he was still in love with her, and doubled down on the idea that he gave her everything, and she wouldn't be anywhere without him. It also came out during this interaction that Clara had apparently blocked him on Twitter, further muddying the waters of what was really going on behind the scenes. Around the same time, Basher uploaded a video entitled How to Be Alone, in which he walks around the empty Seattle home that he once shared with Clara.
I love her so much, and then this happened, and why did this happen? And I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry, her hair.
On April 30th, a little over a week since the first interview, Basher appeared on Drama Alert once again to talk with his new friend Keemstar about fresh allegations that had begun to surface about Clara. Before they even began discussing this new information though, Basher made it clear that this was the first time hearing about any of it, and this is where things became interesting.
Here's Clara taking a picture in a room, and somebody is on the bed. Do you see the circle there, the elbow?
Yeah.
Whose
Yeah,
room?
that's
Whose room
that's
is
Garrett's
that?
room. What the?
So now I know you haven't seen this.
Dude, that's straight up Garrett's room. That is Garrett's room.
The next image is coming from a vlog from Big Mac, and whose bed is Garrett on?
That's Clara's bed. That's where she's sleeping. Apparently, that's where she was sleeping. What the? That's the blanket that I bought for Clara. I bought that for Clara when we were together. Oh God, what the?
The idea that Clara might be dating former friend Garrett was clearly distressing to Basher, especially since it was so soon after their breakup. He claimed that he had been trying to get in contact with her on a near daily basis since she dumped him, but had only gotten a response that day in the form of a text where she said she loved him and she never meant to hurt him. That was when Keem dropped the bombshell. Keem revealed that he had been collaborating in secret with a man by the name of Smile for YouTube, the owner of a Minecraft server who had worked with both Basher and Clara on multiple occasions. Smile stated that he had been messaging back and forth with Clara, offering to pay her just to speak with Brandon. Not only that, he played the audio of a Skype call he had with her earlier that day, around the same time she texted Basher. In this call, Smile offered to pay Clara $1,000 to text Brandon to calm him down during one of his emotional episodes, which she appears to have agreed to.
She seems really concerned because she just messaged me, "He already did the interview, too late, we are all f***ed."
What?
I just sent that in the chat right now so we can all see it.
Oh,
Play the
bullshit.
audio.
Here it is.
You have actual audio?
Here it is. Hey.
I know. Hey, what's up?
Say something to him. You have to talk to him nice or something like that, because he's bawling his eyes out. I'll give you $1,000. Bullshit your way through this. I'll give you $1,000 right now. Okay.
I left him a
Okay,
voicemail
if I give you $1,000 right now, will you at least be nice and kind to him and try to make him all happy right now before he goes under Drama Alert?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I need.
too late, we're all f***ed. Yeah, you're f***ed. You used me. Yes, you are f***ed. It's bullshit. You don't use people. This is fucking A. I'm not going through this pain every single night. Every single night I go through this pain. You know I have to drink NyQuil every single night in order to sleep because going upstairs to that bed is so fucking hard for me. And I see her making these tweets like everything's all fine and her on her freaking live streams like everything's all fucking fine. I don't fucking care anymore. You used me. You got caught. I don't care anymore. I don't care. At least in the end I got the f***er in the
When this video went up, it quickly became the hottest topic of the moment. It racked up millions of views, becoming one of Keemstar's best performing videos of all time, and launching him to a new level of popularity. Basher also became one of the biggest Twitter trends, with creators and viewers alike from all reaches of the online world chiming in on the clip of Keem's reaction to the revelation that Basher had sodomized Clara, becoming a meme overnight. And just like that, the opinion of the internet seemed to be overwhelmingly in Basher's favor, with most feeling that the evidence was now clear that Bam was trying to bring him down and that Clara had been using him all along. Not wanting to let a good thing go to waste, Keem began to milk the Basherverse cash cow for all that it was worth. Basher
Leaving
could
on
hardly
a
sneeze
Sunday
without Keem
afternoon.
including him in a daily drama alert video. For
Alright,
example,
I'm back.
Brandon once responded sympathetically to the death of a transgender video game developer, to which Keem asked the question if it meant
Let's
that
hop back
Basher
to
himself
Borderlands.
was actually trans.
Back to Borderlands.
No matter how mundane, a drama alert found a reason to
Reject
report on.
modernity,
On May
return to
1st,
Borderlands.
The day after the interview, Jobless Garrett posted a video to his own channel in the hopes of quelling the rumors surrounding him. He completely denied the idea that he and Clara were sleeping together, citing Keemstar's admittedly poor evidence to back up his claims. However, Garrett's explanation of what was really going on was strange to say the least, and made many wonder what the deal was with the living arrangements in this house. According to him, with the way the BAM Lounge was structured, they simply didn't have enough space for everybody who was living there, so some rooms needed to serve double functions. When Clara moved back into the BAM house, Garrett's bedroom was split down the middle, half of it still belonging to him and the other half becoming Clara's office. That explained why she took the selfie in Garrett's bedroom, and why he was still asleep in the bed when the picture was taken. As to why enough in this house, to say the least, and made many wonder what the deal was with the living arrangements in this house. According to him, with the way the BAM Lounge was structured, they simply didn't have enough space for everybody who was living there, so some rooms needed to serve double functions. When Clara moved back into the BAM house, Garrett's bedroom was split down the middle, half of it still belonging to him and the other half becoming Clara's office. That explained why she took the selfie in Garrett's bedroom, and why he was still asleep in the bed when the picture was taken. As to why he was sleeping in her bed, Garrett said that sometimes Clara would want to live stream in her office early in the morning when he wanted to sleep in. He obviously didn't want to be in the background of her streams, so he would instead go downstairs to sleep in Clara's bed in the living room. The video ended with Garrett stating that he had explained the whole thing to Basher in person, and that the two had actually watched the interview together at Basher's house. It even included a short clip at the end of Basher and Garrett together, in which Basher cleared
R.I.P.
the air
Basher.
and said he believed Garrett's story. Basher seemed to be making amends with his former enemies, and soon he would reconnect with another. Merely 2 days after the interview, Clara went on Twitter to publicly announce that she had moved out of the BAM Lounge. This was strange given how much trouble she went through to live there in the first place. But that strangeness was nothing compared to the reveal of who she was living with now. Brandon Asher. Yes, the two took a selfie together and stated that she had moved back into his house in Seattle, and were talking through what had happened. This begins the next chapter in the Basherverse saga. Basher initially denied the rumors that he and Clara were dating again, but soon confirmed it in a video titled 18 Million Volts of Forgiveness, featuring Brandon and Clara teasing each other to make things between the two even.
Back in September, we had a miscarriage. Clara got pregnant, and it turned out to be an ectopic pregnancy, and she had a miscarriage, and we lost the baby. And that's something that we never really told anyone about. We told our close friends.
Ah, fuck.
What needs to be talked about is the Skype conversation that I was recorded in on Drama Alert. I really, really regret that, and it was terrible and incredibly messed up. And
No.
The best thing right now that I can do is ask for
Ah, you fucks. You know what? Fuck you guys.
With 18 million volts up
At best, people were confused by this update. The breakneck narrative shift from Basher being a manipulative pedo to Clara being a heartless gold digger to the new one of them being a couple again was jarring to say the least. And the
Who cares,
teasing
bro?
aspect only made it
It's
more
not-
perplexing.
it's not our
People
lives,
began
you know?
to turn on Basher once again, with some
Who
claiming
fucking
that
cares?
he and Clara faked all of this drama just for attention. Upon asking those involved in the drama about this change to edgier content, it turns out that allegedly the people at the website Social Blade began to push Basher to do more exploitative content, as they began to take a cut of his revenue. As the story goes, while this more edgy content was bad for Brandon's mental health, it was good for their bottom line.
He got in connection with people at Social Blade, and Social Blade was helping him create new content. So they started doing challenge videos. Now I gave him a couple ideas for challenge videos because I was doing them at the time, but then they also gave him challenge video ideas, and they were filming him with very expensive cameras. These two people from Social Blade that we met once, and they wanted to take him and grow his channel because they said, "We're from Social Blade, we can grow your channel." And they had to be in their like late 30s or early 40s. Two 40-year-olds filming them getting tased, filming these weird little challenge videos, and I think they wanted a part of his channel eventually. Like, we're gonna grow you, but we want to take a little piece.
Around this time, the public also began going after Basher due to the increasing sexualization of his videos. He had always used Clara's looks in some capacity to get views, but after they got back together, it started ramping up to a large
that's not
degree.
fun.
Pretty much every one of his videos featured Clara in a bikini or showing excessive amounts of skin, and the contents of the videos weren't much different. Many saw this as blatantly exploitative behavior, made even worse given the fact that much of Basher's audience was young children. While public opinion may have been turning on Basher, his relationship with Clara seemed to be doing better than ever before, at least from an outsider's perspective. They were back living together and making videos, and it even
How'd he
came
get up
out that
there?
they had plans to get married. Despite the apparent success in his love life, Basher's mental health did not seem to improve much over this time. He announced in July of 2015 that he would start taking medication to help both with his depression and anxiety disorders. Brandon also went on several Twitter rants over the following months, lamenting the loss of the people he once considered to be his friends who had turned on him, and how he felt he would never be able to clear his name of the accusations of pedophilia. Despite getting further and further from the original controversy and new developments
Fixated
constantly
stalker,
coming up in his favor, Basher still seemed to be convinced that his life and career were destroyed beyond repair.
What has happened in the last couple days? Because you were happy, you had all this support. I don't get it.
Because
what changed?
I thought I could figure it out. I've got all this support. I've got all these people.
Exactly.
Dude, support does not give me ideas. Support does not give me content. Support does not sit me down in front of a computer and put the game in front of me or put the vlog in front of me.
I have a crazy idea. How about
Is that
we just
Keemstar?
live stream, all right, and just talk to your fans. Just talk to them.
This all culminated
That's not a
in
bad
November
idea
of
from
that
coming
same
from
year
Keem,
when
honestly.
Basher tweeted that he planned to check himself into a mental health facility. Keemstar reached out to confirm the legitimacy of the statement, to which Basher responded angrily, blaming Keem for his destroyed reputation, which was a strange jab considering how much work Keem had done since originally breaking the story to paint Basher in a positive light. Around this time, rumors were circling around that Basher actually had plans to sue Keemstar, and the lawsuit was to be funded by a fellow YouTuber
I need
known as
my neck
Futuristic,
massager.
an
My
interesting
neck's
man
killing me.
most well known for truly bizarre videos including Minecraft porn and other animations. His involvement in the story is confusing to say the least. In the beginning, he was one of the many people spreading the original pedophile allegations. However, somewhere along the way, his point of view shifted completely, with him defending Basher and deeming Keem to be the true enemy. Futuristic Hub's motivations seemed to confuse even the people who knew him, and it's hard to tell exactly what he hoped to gain from all this. Regardless, this lawsuit didn't go anywhere, and Basher disappeared from the internet for a little under a month. Basher returned to YouTube again in December, posting simple, low-effort vlogs consisting of him and Clara just lying in bed. These weren't the only videos they were making, but fans were feeling a bit insulted by how little he seemed to care. However, the irritation over these vlogs was nothing compared to the outrage sparked by a video he posted later that week, in which he pranked Clara while in the shower by throwing flour on her. While the prank itself was clearly faked, the main issue people had with it was that Clara was nude for the entire runtime of the video. It was censored, of course, and Basher had been sexualizing Clara for views for some time now, but many saw it as a step too far, especially considering Basher's young audience. This backlash didn't seem to faze Basher though, as he quickly went to the video's comments to say that he would release the uncensored version if his channel reached 10 million subscribers in 2016. Not only that, but the next day he sent out a tweet saying that he had received a number of offers for naked photos of Clara. He attached a link to his PayPal with the promise that anyone who paid him enough money would get her nudes. He didn't specify how much he was charging for them, simply stating, "We'll tell you when it's enough." It's worth noting that Clara was not an exploited victim in all this, as she was on Twitter backing up Basher and cheering him on as he did this. Despite that, the shower video was quickly removed by YouTube after being flagged en masse. This new devil-may-care attitude for Basher continued into July 15, 2016, when he appeared on Drama Alert for yet another interview with Keemstar, even though he had recently blamed him for his mental problems. He immediately came off as more manic and unhinged than usual, even stating that he was feeling different. This wasn't helped by his claim that he had recently gone off his meds, choosing instead to self-medicate with marijuana. On the upside, Basher claimed to be much more resilient to harassment and rumors now, brushing off statements that would have at one point sent him into an emotional frenzy. The subject of Basher's use of Clara's body for views was brought up as well, which he predictably bragged about.
Is it bad that you're pimping out your girlfriend?
No, because that money that comes back, pays for her too, so she loves it.
Okay. And then there's also there was also a point where you did this prank where Clara was naked, right? And
Yes.
And you said that you would release the uncensored version if you reached, 10 million
10
subscribers.
million subscribers in 2016. Go over to my channel right now and subscribe, and we will release an uncensored version of that video at 10 million subs.
But will you really do that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for 10 million subs? Are you kidding? We'll release a sex tape.
Keem also touched on a video that Basher had made a few days ago that was drawing more backlash. In this video, Basher reacted to his original Freakout video, pretending as though he had never seen it before while eating popcorn. He made jokes at his own expense in the video, even asking multiple times if he was going to commit suicide. A lot of people were offended by this, seeing it as Basher making light of a serious topic that he had helped start a discussion of in the first place. According to him, the point of the video was to reclaim his mental illness and show that he had moved past that dark stage of his life. He wanted to be a symbol for people going through similar struggles, stating that if he could get through it, anyone could. However, this positive can-do attitude for Basher didn't seem to stick around for very long. Despite publicly making up with Skydoes Minecraft in February, who was one of the first people to disavow Brandon, in March he was right back to his old self. That month was when Basher threatened on Twitter that he was going to quit YouTube, but walked back the statement almost instantly. If he was doing better before, he now seemed to be right back at where he started. After that, things mostly continued as usual for a while, with Brandon and Clara floating around the idea of starting a Patreon for her nudes. Things were getting out of control as alliances kept on changing along with their stories. Soon enough, a new bombshell would be dropped that would turn this case inside out.
This is how it's done, alright? Okay, this is the game plan. Alright, you get her in this private call, you record her saying this stuff, okay? Then, we come on and we do the interview, right? And I say something like, and you tell me the background, I'm saying, other than this text, do you have any proof? Like, do you have any real proof? I know she said this to you in a private Skype conversation, smile for YouTube. But, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people out there that say, that you're full of shit. There's going to be a lot of people out there saying that, maybe you and Basher made a deal behind the scenes.
On March 25th, 2016, Keemstar was interviewed by a fellow drama channel, Scarce, to discuss a recently leaked piece of audio that seemed to completely change the context of a lot of this story thus far. This audio was recorded directly before Keem's popular interview with Basher that exposed Clara as a gold digger. In the clip, Keem can be heard planning out the video ahead of time with Basher and Smile for YouTube, talking about exactly how things will go down. This made it clear that Basher's reaction to the news had been entirely faked, as he is on record talking about all the over-the-top ways he could act. Even the infamous sodomy line was apparently decided beforehand.
Do you have any legitimate proof that she said this? I mean, these conversations can be forged, and then you interrupt me and you're just
Yes,
like...
sir, I do. I got
We back?
audio right now.
Okay, give me the audio, and then we play it in the interview. Oh my god, it's over. Coming from Drama
And I'll even react. I'll even react like I've never heard it.
As for Keem's explanation, he said he wanted to help Basher out and thought that the best way to do that would be to make the interview as dramatic as possible. Although Keem was not alone in this, as it seems Basher was the one who included Smile for YouTube in the scheme.
And Basher just starts freaking crying and he's upset, and then finally anger comes out of this guy who's just acting so sad, and he belts out, at least in the end, I got to f her in.
That wasn't staged?
That was in the private Skype call, okay?
Oh, okay.
So I'm dying scarce. Like, my face is red because I'm trying not to laugh. You know what I mean? Because this is a really sensitive time. But, like, I just couldn't hold it, and I just burst out laughing, right? And so then we start talking about, like, doing this interview and going over everything. And this Smile for YouTube guy is obsessed with freaking, you know, exposing Clara or whatever, because he's actually was trying to land a sponsorship deal with Basher, because Basher was a bigger pull. My main objective is to get the facts and get the news out to my audience. But it's also to make my show entertaining, right? So we come up with the idea that Basher's gonna hear all this information for the first time, and that's basically how we faked it or staged it. But all the information in the actual video is real, just the reaction isn't, I guess, authentic. It is the same reaction he had in the private Skype call, but it's just reenacted, right?
According to Keem, despite Basher's reaction to it being staged, the audio of Clara accepting $1,000 to talk to him was still real. Keem was sure to stress that nothing said in the interview was a lie. He merely wanted to heighten the drama. Still, a lot of people took issue with this, saying that Keem's job was to report the news, not to be a showman. As for who leaked the audio, that was Smile for YouTube, as he had been hounding Basher and Keem for months to pay him in order to keep the secret, but with no success. However, Scarce was not the person Smile gave the audio to. In his video, Scarce did not link to the original source of the audio or even say the name of the person who had initially broken the story. If he had, many would have discovered a completely new angle that turned this entire controversy on its head. When I decided to start working on this project, I originally just planned for it to be a basic video chronicling the mental breakdown of one of Minecraft's biggest stars. But the deeper I looked into this, the less things added up. The timelines never made sense, and it seemed like the day-to-day dysfunction of Basher made people forget about the original accusations, and the validity of them. Through our research, we stumbled upon yet another side of the story that complicates things even more, while also at the same time having things make more sense. For me to explain this, let's rewind back a year. Around the same time Keemstar picked up this story in 2015, another small YouTuber by the name of Mr. Sif was also getting involved, but without a fraction of the attention of Drama Alert. Sif ran a channel called Camp Kill Commentary that mostly made videos about Call of Duty before finding himself doing some sleuthing into Basher's past. To be clear, all the information we are about to tell comes from our conversation with Mr. Sif, along with his uploads from 2016 on the subject, and screenshots he showed us corroborating his story and timeline. Whether you choose to believe what is about to be told is completely up to you. According to him, he started off knowing very little about the situation beyond Basher's arrest, and immediately spent a lot of time trolling Basher, replying to every one of his tweets and bringing up his record. He did this for a while until Basher finally reacted, lashing out and replying to Sif's tweets angrily. This is what really propelled him into the situation, as according to him, a number of people who had gotten to know Basher over the years began to reach out. A lot of these people were creators who wanted to talk in private about the various rumors and stories they'd heard about Basher. One person the drama alert. Sif ran a channel called Camp Kill Commentary that mostly made videos about Call of Duty before finding himself doing some sleuthing into Basher's past. To be clear, all the information we are about to tell comes from our conversation with Mr. Sif, along with his uploads from 2016 on the subject, and screenshots he showed us corroborating his story and timeline. Whether you choose to believe what is about to be told is completely up to you. According to him, he started off knowing very little about the situation beyond Basher's arrest, and immediately spent a lot of time trolling Basher, replying to every one of his tweets and bringing up his record. He did this for a while until Basher finally reacted, lashing out and replying to Sif's tweets angrily. This is what really propelled him into the situation, as according to him, a number of people who had gone to know Basher over the years began to reach out. A lot of these people were creators who wanted to talk in private about the various rumors and stories they'd heard about Basher. One person, however, stood out from the crowd and serves as one of the strangest loose ends in this entire
Hold up.
story. Basher's ex-girlfriend.
BRB. Oh. All right, we're back.
Girl he lived with before he was ever an internet celebrity, I guess. And yeah, I got to talk to her a lot. Actually paid her phone bill once just so she could
Paid her
continue
phone
talking to
bill?
me. She sent me a lot of pictures.
No shot.
A lot of stuff about Basher.
In Basher's tell-all video, he made it sound like after the incident where he had a run-in with the law, he was kind of a shut-in for a decade. That's at least how he made it sound before he got popular on YouTube. But you're basically saying that there was a whole other side of Basher that he did not let on to, where he had a live-in girlfriend and he had a life that was not just him
A
sitting
living
in his
girlfriend,
house
huh?
playing video games all the time.
Oh no, he didn't have a life. She was very clear that he was locked in a room alone.
Oh, I never noticed this.
They basically had problems.
Quick change station here.
Caught him
Huh.
talking to little girls. That was the big problem between them. She knows he's pretty sexually sick, and like, in my opinion, I'm not a doctor.
Now, before you ask, this woman was not Clara.
What happened?
Nor was it the girl who...
Because she caught him talking to little girls.
Oh.
That was the big problem between them. She knows he's pretty sexually sick, and like, in my opinion, I'm not a doctor.
Now, before you ask, this woman was not Clara. Nor was it the girl who Basher said cheated on him back when he was a teenager. This was a different person entirely. Someone who claimed to have been dating Basher during his decade of isolation following his arrest. An era of his life that we previously knew nothing about. If you remember, in this confession video, Basher said he had no contact with people other than his mother during this period of time. So needless to say, it's bizarre that he never before mentioned this girl's existence. According to her, the story about Basher being a shut-in was completely true, as he rarely left his room for the entire time they were dating, putting quite a strain on their relationship. Not only that, but according to her, he was still messaging other girls on a frequent basis, which obviously didn't help matters either. At the time, she tried to simply write it off as one of his personality quirks. Sif also claimed that she said Basher was both physically and sexually abusive towards her.
Ah,
yeah,
wall.
I put some of the transcripts up where she said he has lots of. I put up a video where she's talking to the victim.
Oh, Boom Boom. You can see Boom Boom from here. What the fuck?
Girl to talk to the ex-girlfriend, and they just talked it out on Skype, and me and another YouTuber just watched, and it was pretty emotional. And they were just going back and forth about how the ex-girlfriend said she was physically abused and sexually abused. And the little girl said she was naive and ignorant, and those two girls talked to each other, the young girl and the ex-girlfriend. And the ex-girlfriend made it clear that that was his lifestyle. Like, he was a shut-in. He would sit there and talk on the computer all the time, and she would catch him all the time talking to girls, and she was aware that he liked underage girls and little girls and small girls. It's just accepted in their relationship. Not accepted, but, you know, like your girlfriend snores, so you're like, oh, I got a snoring girlfriend. That sucks. That's how she felt about him liking little girls, I guess. Right. And that girl was gonna come forward. I almost got her so close to coming forward, but Keemstar was posting and then all the freaking maniac fans were like slandering this girl, and she was just so scared. Like, she said that she was afraid to come forward all these years because she thought Basher would kill her. That she really thought he would.
Wow.
And like,
did she have any reason to believe that? Was there any threats made against her by Basher?
Well, she knows he really likes violence. He really likes sexual violence. Like, just the stuff I was putting on the internet. This, he really typed that.
Yo, what's up?
Both the ex-girlfriend and the other girl remain anonymous. Sif was
Alright,
also
dudes, I'm
put
gonna
in
hop off
contact
stream now.
with several members
Catch
of the
y'all later.
Masons, the World of Warcraft clan that allegedly Basher was a member of during his time as a shut-in. According to them, Basher was sending sexually explicit emails to at least one woman in the group at the time. A claim that they did provide screenshots for, including one showing what they claimed to be his genitals. It's worth noting that this woman in particular was of legal age. When pressed about this, Basher claimed to have never been a member of this clan and had no idea who they were.
Not right now. That fool hasn't paid me for the last pound, so